Our story begins with our protagonist being kicked out of his job. "Mr. Han, you're no longer fit for this position." "Goodbye," says the boss. Confused, he replies, "Oh, okay." As he leaves the room, the guy says, "If we find a spot for you, we'll send you a message." The woman asks if he wants her to call a taxi for him, to which he declines. Our protagonist gets up, leaves, and sees them talking outside. The guy mentions hearing that the protagonist went to the same school as the company's owner, yet while the owner runs the company, this failure is getting fired here. Furthermore, he's been betrayed by his girlfriend. He adds, "I don't even know how Mr. Du had the guts to give this guy a position." The protagonist hangs his head. This was his last chance. Helping, caring for others, these things only make you seem kind, but in reality, following them, you became a failure. The scene cuts to him catching a subway. This is the unstoppable routine of a model citizen. Wake up, catch the metro, go to work, return exhausted. Standing on the metro, he contemplates that it would be better if everything ended soon. The train is approaching and he's thinking about ending it all. Suddenly, the lights go out. He looks around. What? A blackout. No, not quite. He realizes as the complaint system activates. Beginner package, use all your points to fulfill a wish. Our protagonist is a manga enthusiast and is familiar with the system. He just wants to know if this is real. If so, the only thing he'd wish for is to go back in time. He wants to go back to the beginning and become someone successful instead of just being a nice guy. However, when he opens his eyes, he sees a train. But this time, he's inside it and younger. Startled, he wonders, did I go back in time? He looks beside him and sees a wonderful girl. He's startled. It's Yanfei. She looks at him and asks, "Are you talking to me?" "What's up?" He says, "No, I just wanted to ask where we are." He thinks, why is the goddess of my school sitting in front of me? That's when he remembers August 30, 2013 and how he acted that day. He says, "Hey, beautiful, do you remember me?" She responds, "Yeah, we went to the same school, right?" He asks if she's also registering for college. She confirms. Our guy informs her that she's heading in the wrong direction. She asks, but isn't this train going to Jiangxing?" He sits down, adjusts his glasses, and says, "Yes, this train is going to Jiangxing. But what I mean is, you've entered my heart." She's speechless. He moves closer, showing signs of being a natural harasser. She tells him not to come closer. He replies, "Relax, this meeting is our destiny." At that moment, she shouts, "Shao gang, there's a pervert here with me." The guy arrives, telling the pervert to get lost. This is all a memory of the first time he lived this day. He grabs instant noodles thinking, "I'll just eat to calm down." The guy with Yanfei teases him, calling him poor for eating instant noodles. Our protagonist looks and thinks, this guy is as arrogant as ever. If it were the old me, I'd argue. But I'm not the same as before. He heats his noodles without caring. Just then, the consumer system activates. He sees his status window with bars for knowledge, appearance, and some other attributes. What's all this? I don't want an artifact not to invest points, he thinks. He sees the skills he had and realizes he was garbage at this time. The system hints, spend money to upgrade your skills. Our protagonist finds it strange that he has the ability to maneuver twice, but the second maneuver is about pleasuring himself. However, he's not interested in that now. He only thinks, with this system, he'll live the life he always dreamed of. He'll be an insane guy. The guy next to him asks, "Bro, have you heated your noodles?" He thinks spending money isn't the problem. The problem is having money to spend. So first he needs to figure out how he's going to make money. Returning to his seat, the guy is talking to Yanfei. "Hey babe, I'll take you somewhere fancy," he says. She prefers noodles. He tries to peek at her phone and she elbows him, saying, "Back off, mind your own business. Damn it." Our protagonist laughs at him. The guy realizes this and asks if he's laughing at him. Our protagonist replies that he isn't. The guy says, "I'm her boyfriend. You can't laugh at our business." She stares at him again and says, "Just let me eat my noodles already." Our protagonist thinks this guy has always been and always will be a simp. A few minutes later, they've finished their noodles. She had gone out to buy a snack and returned, but unfortunately, it was already sold out. Our protagonist pulls some chicken drumsticks out of his pocket. She asks how much they cost and says, "I'll pay for it, relax." He quotes the original price of $2.50. She says she doesn't have change and tells him to keep the 3. He says she's kind and gives her an orange as compensation for the 50 cents difference. She says he's very polite and he's already fallen for her. Her smile is enchanting. Until the simp appears and says, "I have money. If you wanted to eat, you could have just asked me to buy it instead of accepting oranges from others." She tells him not to be rude and asks why he's shouting, but the guy doesn't stop and continues, "I said I'd take you to the restaurant. Why did you buy this guy's snack?" She stands up and asks, "Do you really care about me?" Everyone on the train starts to look and she leaves. The boyfriend asks where she's going. She says she's going to the trash and doesn't want to talk to him anymore. The guy gets angry, looks at our protagonist and says, "Hey, get up," grabbing his collar and throwing him to the ground, shouting, "This is all your fault, you damn four-eyed loser." He wants to kick our boy, who's already spitting blood. He didn't expect his body to be this weak, but he won't let it slide. He gets up thinking, "I was worried about where my first income would come from. You'll be my first benefactor." The scene cuts to some time later. Yanfei is asking how he is, what happened. The doctor says, "The boy's reflex is gone. He's in a coma." "How did you fall into a coma? Are you the king of acting?" The doctor continues, his brain was severely damaged. He needs to be taken to the hospital now. Our protagonist is thinking the guy didn't hold back and it hurt a lot. He threw me to the ground and said, "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been embarrassed in front of her." Our protagonist says that this guy only knew how to resolve everything with violence. The simp says, "What did you say? Repeat that." Our protagonist looks at him, calling him useless, and even thanks him for the conversation he had with his girlfriend. With that, he takes another punch, and at that moment, everyone on the train tries to hold the simp back, telling him to stop. But the guy doesn't stop punching our boy. Just then, the waifu appears and asks what he's doing. Desperately, he says, "Sorry." When he looks at our protagonist, he's smiling, calling him trash. She pushes the fool aside and asks our boy if he's okay, who says he's feeling really bad and passes out. She shouts for doctors. The simp tries to explain the story to the policeman, saying our protagonist was pretending. But everyone on the train said it was a lie, just because this guy was talking to his girlfriend. He didn't like it and beat up the boy. Everyone is on our boy's side. The waifu is even sad and thinks, "It's my fault he got involved in this." She's sad for involving our protagonist. The simp is there, explaining himself, "Don't arrest me. He provoked me, man." The guard says, "Enough. Everyone here is given testimony. The facts won't be denied. Why didn't you think straight while hitting him, huh? Do you think you have a lot of money? This is all your responsibility." He runs to Yanfei and says, "Yanfei, please help me. Say something. You know I'm not like this." But she pushes his hand away. He then says he's going to call his dad. His father answers and asks, "Where are you? What happened?" He tells the whole story while crying. Back to when the protagonist was waking up and said, "My mouth hurts a lot." Yanfei's on top of him asking, "How do you feel? Where does it hurt?" The protagonist's nose is already bleeding, obviously. She asks, "Why is it bleeding? Did it hurt that much?" He says he's okay, just that she's too hot. "Nope, you didn't say that." Our protagonist gives her a slight stare and thinks she really is a goddess. Just look at her face. She says, "We're almost at the station. I'll take you to the hospital." Our boy says he's fine, but she informs him that he lost a tooth. He puts his hand on his face and thinks, "I'm glad I lost that tooth. I was afraid it was just scratches." He then says aloud, "I'll have to do some exams." It's clear he's planning to extort the cuckold. But waifu is standing thinking he's really a lunatic. How can he hit someone like that out of nowhere? What if something bad happened to him? As he was leaving the hospital, he hugs her and says, "Thank you, you truly are the school goddess. So beautiful, so kind." She even says, "I didn't even know you were from my school. Now I understand why you seem so familiar." The protagonist falls and says, "The goddess remembers me. I am honored." She awkwardly says, "Wow, even in this state you praise me." He tells her, "This makes me think I need to hit the gym more. Taking a beating alone is no problem, but what if this situation was to protect someone and I couldn't? I have to be tough." She agrees it's good he thinks that way, but says he needs to at least know how to defend himself. Our boy says that guy got what he deserved. Now he'll be detained for a day or two. Since his tooth fell out, this escalated the case to something criminal. That's life. Whoever walks by the river gets their feet wet. Our protagonist's life is pretty good in the hospital. The nurse informs him, "This is a private room just for you. The best medicines and treatments will be provided. You can rest assured." He thanks her but wonders, who could be spending so much money? Probably the simp's family. Our protagonist checks the system and sees he's already earned some points, 20,000 current assets. He understands that, even though he didn't pay for transportation or the hospital, it still counts as his expenses. That's the good life. Just then, someone enters. It's Yanfei again. She doesn't give the boy a second to recover. She comes all cute and returns his glasses. With just that, our protagonist is already imagining the wedding. He puts on his glasses to look at her. He thinks she's so thick with a good personality to match. She knows what's important. He was thinking he even has to thank the simp for this opportunity. She tells our protagonist that her father will arrive soon and asks, "Why don't you give me your number so we can keep in touch?" Our boy obviously gives it right away. Her family enters and she hugs her father all happily. Then another guy who arrives immediately says, "I'm sorry, young man. I'm Shougang's father. I didn't raise my son correctly. My wife and I came to apologize. Our protagonist feels awkward and says it's okay. He doesn't need anything. But the man comes running and tells him, "Don't move, kid. Stay still. You need to recover." The mother is embarrassed. "I spoiled him too much. Luckily, you didn't stoop to his level, but we'll compensate you." Our protagonist says, "It's partly my fault too. I know he kicked me, hit me, broke my tooth, made my nose bleed, stepped on me, but I cursed him, right?" The father recommends that he accepts the offer. It's a very high amount, and they can forget all this. Our protagonist takes a peek and asks how much. The father says, 800,000 yuan. Is that acceptable? Our protagonist is thinking, how many attribute points can I buy in the system of all this? The old man is confused, asking why he didn't react more. Does he want more? Our protagonist knows the situation he's in is good. The old man's afraid he'll report his son and ruin the guy's career. That's why he's doing everything to keep quiet, but he accepts, saying that's a great amount. Now I understand why Yanfei always said she had a very cool uncle, but the nervous guy asks, "But what? If you solve this just with money, you'll prove you're a father not so concerned about your son's education. I think it's important that your son understand that this behavior wasn't correct, or he'll ruin his own life." The guy is still receiving money yet wanting to preach morals. The reluctant father says, "All right, kid, I'll educate him better." Our protagonist is playing with fire and continues threatening that he doesn't want the money, saying, "I really don't need it. I just want him to understand that this behavior will hurt him and his family." The guy starts crying, saying, "I understand. When he's released, I'll bring him here to apologize." The wife says it's okay, and they both leave. Everyone is already in the hallway leaving. Asim's father greets the blonde's father, apologizing for the trouble his son caused. The guy says, "Relax. At least you came quickly and talked to the kid." Everyone leaves. At this moment, the father sees that his daughter isn't very happy and asks what's wrong. She says that Gang was a complete idiot doing that. Outside, the father says at least she's okay. And that guy will now disappear from her life. She says thank goodness and says, if that guy had the maturity of the boy he hit, things wouldn't be like this. The father says, "You seem to have a good opinion of the boy. You met him yesterday, right?" She blushes and says, "No, he's from the same school as me. I just felt embarrassed because he got beaten up because of me, and he seemed like an easygoing guy." "What do you think of him, Dad?" The father is thinking he seems like a mature and responsible boy. And here comes the father with the speech. "My daughter, at your age, boys who are mature like that have suffered a lot. Someone like him prefers success over feelings. I'm sure he has a bright future. But I don't know if he's ready for relationships." The daughter says okay, but he adds, "Well, I just want to remind you that relationships are exhausting. Be careful." She graciously tells him not to worry because she's not interested in dating. Meanwhile, our protagonist is all happy looking at the system. 387,000 points in the bank account. Best of all, the guy spent on him and now he has money to spend again. It's a double win. He falls on the bed and thinks, what do I do? Then he touches his glasses and says, right, I'm nearsighted and I'm toothless. Can this be resolved here? Seeing the options on the system, he remembers being teased about it in his past life. So he wonders, system, can you help with this? They're just seen like in the Matrix. When he opens his eyes are restored. Healthy status. He gets up from the bed, goes to the mirror, and takes off his glasses. Tada! So is this really how I am? Now the boy feels unstoppable. Eyes are called the mirrors of the soul. As a great wise master says, attractive eyes have a clean and beautiful structure with a lovely coloration. Just with this change, my attractiveness went up by 3 points. This shows that one function can influence the others. He receives a message from his friend saying, I really appreciate your help. I'm at the Confucius temple, how about we grab something to eat? He tells her, I'm still toothless. Bring me a book to read. She apologizes for forgetting he's toothless and says she'll bring a book later. The two are very happy. The protagonist made another flirt, saying that if he were there, she wouldn't even have time to eat everything. This protagonist is unstoppable. Her father is even there, wondering why this girl is all smiles. The next day, she really brought a book for him, but it's a really difficult and boring book, and she asks if he didn't like it. He says, it's not that I didn't like it, but why did you bring me such a book? She says she's kidding and hands him a copy of Solo Leveling. He looks and says, I knew you'd understand me. She tells him to get better soon and winks, but suddenly she approaches, and our boy backs away. She says that him taking off the glasses really improved his appearance a lot. The guy was already a bit convinced, and now he'll be even more. And he says, do you think that's all? I'll still improve so much and become even more handsome. She tells him to calm down. Are you thinking the glasses sealed your beauty? He says exactly. A cheeky one. She says that if that's the case, he should never put the seal on again and tells him to prepare because tomorrow she's bringing her father. Our protagonist thinks, why is she talking about her father? The next day, the simp shows up there saying, sorry man, I shouldn't have hit you. I couldn't control my emotions, but it's from the bottom of my heart. Please forgive me. Even the father and mother are moved. Our boy says, I accept your parents really love you, so don't worry them again. The guy is thinking, darn, he really wants to preach morals at me. A while later, a lawyer arrives for him to sign the paperwork and receive the $800,000. Look at this beautiful check. Take it, kid. I hope it never happens again. Our protagonist replies, you're very kind. The guy not only paid for the trip, the room, gave compensation, and everything else. A total of $1.15 million was spent. Now that he has the points, the priority is to raise his attributes. But he thinks he can't just spend everything on attributes. He still has to have money to eat and live. He falls on the bed and thinks, what if I don't spend anything? I just buy a comfortable little house, live comfortably for the rest of my life eating instant noodles. That's when the big friend comes back saying, we're here to see how you're doing. This girl is getting more inflated every time. The father comes and tells him to rest and says, she and I will travel soon, so I brought a little gift. Accept it here. Giving him a bundle of money. The father says it was a problem that involved his daughter too, so he wanted to compensate in some way. This time, our protagonist doesn't want the money and says, I don't want this money. She's a victim just like me. From whoever it is, I don't accept this money. The guy is already grabbing his shoulder. You really are a prodigy among young men. When you come back home, come visit us as a guest. Your grades must be incredible. Your college is close to hers, so I ask you to take care of her. She asked her father not to say these things. Our protagonist is confused, but says he's really at her university. She gets all excited, but he explains that he's in the humanities field, which usually doesn't get much recognition. Everyone is embarrassed. Our boy tells a sad story. When he was young, he thought grades didn't matter, followed a somewhat wrong path, and ended up in this situation. The father and daughter just watch. And our protagonist says that at least he learned from his mistakes, and now the only thing he can do is be better in college. The father says, you're right, kid. You can't be stuck in the past. The important thing is the direction you're going. And that money you received, what are you going to do with it? Start your business. Our boy says not now, but soon he'll become an entrepreneur and sell courses on how to make $800,000. The father congratulates him and leaves. But before he goes, the kid says to him, you're an amazing father. Even in 20 years, I'll remember. I want to be someone like you. The father thanks him and says goodbye, also saying he'll remember. And the friend also leaves happily. Now he's focused. He calls the nurse and says he wants to be discharged. It's time for him to start developing rapidly. He knows that in 2 years, real estate prices will go up a lot, and those who take advantage of the opportunity will be the next billionaires. Already on the bus, heading to the city of dreams, he arrives at the real estate agency, pulls out the black card, and asks about houses of 40 to 60 square meters near a school area that have been built in the last 2 years. The consultant says, there's this one that's priced great. Our king of negotiations says it's that one. His parents dreamed that he would buy a house, and look at him now, in his 20s already buying a house. It looks like he's going to buy 2 houses, but he's going to rent them both out just to cover his monthly expenses. This is the weakest capitalist. He already rented a deluxe presidential suite as soon as he received $100,000. He's all happy, thinking, finally, my new start has begun. At that moment, he realizes he's still toothless. He opens the system and says, restore my tooth. However, the system shows that the cost of the tooth exceeds the current amount, and his command cannot be executed. He needs to level up the system. Some skills are necessary to activate these effects. The user needs to possess at least 3 level 3 skills. First, he needs to reach level 2 since he just spent a lot of money and is full of points. He advances to level 2 and starts shining. He says it's as if his thoughts have become clearer and faster. His mind is overflowing with ideas. There was so much that he even fell to the ground. He gets up after a while with a headache because he absorbed too much information. Some skills like accounting, finance, and marketing show that knowledge is not just about how you think, but also about the accumulation of information you have. One influences the other, and now, by leveling up both, he will become part of the elite. When his phone rings, someone asks, is this student Han? You took a 15-day break, and today is the last day. If you don't return, you'll repeat the year. He tries to extend his break, saying he's still unwell and will return soon. Then he takes another look at the system and discovers that to upgrade an attribute from 70 to 79, it costs 200,000 points per level. And worse, to maximize it to level 5, it costs 10 million. For now, forget it. He has no chance of maximizing anything. He then sees that a new function has been unlocked by leveling up. Every time he spends money, there's a small chance he'll receive gifts related to his consumption. The items will be sent directly to his item bar. Sometime later, our protagonist had returned to college. The girls are all looking at him saying, "Wow, he's tall. Is he a new student?" Our hero is not feeling himself. He took advantage of the system, improved his nose, reduced something here, improved something there, and did a lot of facial adjustments. The e-girls are all crazy about him now. He goes to the principal's office to explain everything that happened. He explains that he was in the hospital for a few days, but he's fine now. He then hands over the hospital certificate. The principal asks if he was really in the hospital and if he brought the documents and money to pay for everything. Our hero says he brought everything while remembering that this guy wasn't a good person. At least he's kind of stupid, so dealing with him is simple. He thanks the teacher for his hard work and asks if he has any idea what the dormitory he'll be staying in is like. The teacher says it's a very lively place. Our protagonist hands over a medical request and says the doctor asked him to rest in a quiet place so he can't stay somewhere with too much commotion. The teacher takes it from him, looks at it, and says, "All right, I'll see if I can get a room for a maximum of 4 people for you, but the cost will be higher, kid." Our protagonist remembers that in his past life he stayed in the crazy dormitory 5, full of maniacs, and he doesn't want to go through that again. Especially now that he has the black card that makes life easy. The scene changes to our dear blonde receiving messages from our protagonist, letting her know he arrived at college. They talk for a bit, but nothing serious. He just stares at the system, thinking that his mother will be shocked by how much he's changed. The only problem is that he only has 40,000 left. It's time to at least buy something to eat. As he buys something to eat at the store and leaves, he sees a guy selling something on the ground, so he asks, "How much is this?" The guy says it's the Manual of Life, 66 Ways to Change Oneself, and it costs only 168 yuan. Our protagonist doesn't think it's worth that much and asks him to lower the price. The guy says he'll do it for 100. Let's say what he's really selling is what the OnlyFans girls sell for 99 cents, but in printed form. At that moment, the system activates. You've purchased a set of life manuals. Activating the gift system, a book suddenly appears in front of him. An ordinary scripture, read it sincerely and you'll increase your intelligence a bit. Our boy is happy because it's expensive to upgrade the attributes, so anything free is perfect. The chubby guy asks if he's okay, but the scene changes to a little later and he's entering a classroom. Some girls are already looking at him sideways. The professor up front says, "The last student arrived, go ahead and introduce yourself." Our protagonist remembers that in his past life he lacked confidence, so he felt embarrassed and everyone laughed at him. However, now with all this transformation, he arrives saying, "My name is Han Lai and I am from the city of flame, intensity, and fervor. My hometown is the city of dreams. Due to hospitalization, I was delayed, but I'm here." The girls are all impressed and the guys are angry, saying he's full of himself. But the teacher applauds and congratulates him. The girls chatting ask Ching Ching what she thinks of this guy. But our protagonist suddenly says, "If there are any single girls in this room, add me to your contacts because I'm easy to please and easy to play with. If you're interested, come talk to me." This guy is a social hazard. Someone stop him. The other guys in the room say he's a jerk who's confident just because he's good looking. The protagonist looks at them and thinks, "Look at those losers, all mad, but my target is you guys." He sits down and a second later, the flirty girls are already surrounding him. Everyone wants to be part of his group. They're all fighting until one pushes through and taps the table, saying, "I'm the class monitor, Shi Lu Ting. First, I need to collect the class fees from you, and then I'll add you to the group." It seems like our protagonist's plan was all just to get this girl to talk to him. She's been considered the goddess of this place for 3 years straight. But as wonderful as she is, he was deceived to the point where he almost had to drop out of college. But this time, he's going to be a great friend. Look at his mischievous face. He's up to something. He teases her, saying, "Do you want me to join the class group, or do you want my number because you're interested in the offer?" She gives him an angry look, saying it's just for him to join the class group because she doesn't care about the other option. He replies, "All right then," and asks her how much it costs to join the group. She realizes he's just teasing her and wonders if he's just like her. As you can see, this is going to be a very healthy relationship. She then says it costs 200 and he immediately pays, asking, "By the way, in this group, will you notify us of the activities?" She says, of course, 3 days in advance. Suddenly, there's a hand coming that I thought was going to slap the girls, but it's just a hug. She's hugging her friend and asking our protagonist, "Do you want me to add you to the class group?" He accepts the offer and she says, "My name is Yu Yum from the hometown of Jiangmen." Our protagonist says she's very charming and has a beautiful name. Then he looks at his phone and ignores her. She wonders if she did something wrong and tries to start a conversation, asking about the brand of his phone. She's never seen one like it before. He says it's a cheap and crappy phone that asks why she wants to know. The poor girl, confused, thinks he seems so rich with that attitude and asks why he uses that phone. Is it sentimental? He says he uses it because he's poor. She makes a face and leaves. What a weak, materialistic girl. But our protagonist remembers that in his past life, she used to manipulate him. She pretended to like him just to keep getting gifts, but she didn't really want anything. Our protagonist stands up, tired of it all, and the girls ask what he thinks of the class leader. Is she beautiful? He says he doesn't care about outward beauty. He wants to know about her inner beauty. She's just listening from the side. At night, everyone leaves to go up to the dormitories. People ask if he's not going with them, but he says no because his dorm is downstairs and it'll be faster to go down. We then see his roommates. One of them looks over and realizes our protagonist has arrived. He kicks him and says, "Get out of here, loser. Why are you just standing there?" But our protagonist is on point now too, just stares at the guy and says, "Get off my bed and move that chair." But the guy asks what will happen if he doesn't. Our protagonist just ignores him and goes up anyway. He gets up there, opens his backpack, and takes out a hammer. The blonde guy was going to say something, but his friend stops him. He says, "Or did the guy grab a hammer up there? What kind of normal person carries a hammer? It's better not to mess with this crazy guy." The guy sleeping in front of him is afraid of getting hit with a hammer in the middle of the night. The three of them are already leaving the dormitory, afraid of getting their heads smashed. Our protagonist asks where they're going. As they leave the room, they say they're going to see their girlfriends. The protagonist smiles like a psychopath and asks if they really have girlfriends. But then he runs off and our guy thinks he scared them too much, staring at the system, wondering if his decision-making is being influenced by his attributes. If that's the case, he has to work even harder to take advantage of it. The next day, there's a green-haired girl talking about our protagonist saying, "Have you heard about that new guy? He seems to be from a billionaire family." The blonde guy recognizes him as the guy who's sleeping peacefully in the dorms while everyone else is suffering. Then we see the psychopath drinking her juice, and when she looks, she sees our protagonist with his athletic body. He was passing by when the girls greeted him from afar. One of them came up to him and asked, "I heard you're living on the top floor. How did you manage to get a spot there?" Our protagonist apparently doesn't want to talk much to her and says it was luck. The blonde guy is walking around with some other guys talking bad about him, saying, "That jerk, how does he come into the room causing a ruckus?" One guy sees them and warns our guy it's best not to mess with those guys. But when the blonde guy sees our protagonist, she gets scared and drops her cigarette. Now it's our protagonist and the milkmaids against the group of guys. Everyone is curious about why they're staring at each other, but our protagonist is calm while the poor guy is trembling. The guy with glasses greets him, while the blonde guy is already leaving. But our hero asks if they're coming back tonight. The blonde guy replies that unfortunately, he has to be with his girlfriend again. The girls are confused because they know each other. But the crazy girl realizes that our protagonist is treating the guys like dogs. He gets into the elevator and asks if they're not coming in while he looks and about 10 girls have arrived. And obviously the naughtiest one is in front of him. She wants to play his game, she charms him, and it works even on the reincarnated fool. As they exit the elevator, the scared guy comes up acting like a buddy, putting his hand on the protagonist's shoulder and saying to him, "You're afraid of yourself." Our protagonist removes his hand and says, "I don't know you, so don't touch me." The guy is surprised by this reaction, apologizes, and runs away. "Didn't you say you wanted to be friends with everyone in your speech?" But he enters the room saying he doesn't remember saying that. As he enters, the milkmaid invites them to sit together. The manipulator sits too. As our protagonist passes by, she stares at him and says, "You're right. Quality is better than quantity when it comes to friends." She asks if he wants to make friends. But he responds curtly that friends don't make a difference. Her friend laughs in her face, but after laughing, she stands up and asks for his phone number. Our guy says he'll give it to her, but he doesn't respond much. The psychopath asks, "So is that why you didn't answer my messages? You don't even pay attention to the class representative." Our protagonist makes an excuse, saying he was too busy and will respond later. She gets a little mad, thinking, what's so special about him? He's shameless. He may be handsome, but he's so arrogant. Better keep my distance from him. When she looks away, he's there, focused, making notes. Our protagonist realizes he has a problem. Even though he has a lot of knowledge now, it's hard to remember to use all of it. So his idea was to make these notes like a desperate person to organize his thoughts. The girls stared, thinking he's crazy, and then asked why he's studying so much when they haven't even gotten to that part yet. Our hero asks her if he can't study alone by any chance. She says he can, but wonders, if you were so smart, wouldn't you be in a humanities class? The protagonist says he was just demotivated before, but now he's ready to revolutionize his life. The two girls are impressed, and her friend points out, saying she knew he was some kind of genius, really different from the other guys. But our guy looks suspiciously at her because he knows her very well. In the past life, she used to play with a bunch of guys too, just looking for a rich one. And as soon as she found one, she got married, so he knows why she's doing this. So he asks the president, "Do you think I'm studying so eagerly?" She tries to guess his story, saying he was a troublemaker, but then in the last year, he lost his girlfriend to a rich guy, then he got beaten up, and then he decided to study so it wouldn't happen again. And that's why he avoids all the girls. Huh? Did I get it all right? She asks. Our protagonist laughs. Are you crazy or do you like writing fanfic? She's a bit embarrassed but doesn't respond. Our hero finds it strange that she became so shy. A little later, still timid, she says goodbye, saying she has some things to do. Our guy starts to think that maybe she really writes fanfic, and now he's curious because he doesn't remember that from his past life. But he thinks that even though she deceived him miserably, she was kind. Plus, she was a hardworking and disciplined girl in her own things. He thought she would do well after graduation, but apparently, she got a bad marriage. Still thinking about her being a writer, he remembers something. Once when he was in the computer room, he saw her receiving a message on the PC, someone asking for an update on a novel. And he begins to wonder, does she have two separate personalities? One for writing novels and one here for the university. The scoundrel says he now wants to reveal what she has beneath the disguise. In the next scene, we see her wanting to study, but she's just biting her pen thinking, my God, why can't I forget him? Look at how she looks at our protagonist. She's just worried that he might have noticed something when she hesitated to answer. Sometime later, the milkmaid asks him to wait for them to go to the cafeteria together. But he responds that he has other things to do and she goes off crying to her friend. At night, our boy won't have class tomorrow, so he'll want to buy a new computer and a new cell phone. The only problem is that now he really needs money. When he enters the room, the blonde guy stares at him and gets scared. Our guy throws his backpack on the bed and everyone thinks he's going to grab the hammer. But let's fast forward to the next day. He buys an iPhone, swipes his card to buy a laptop, and then goes and buys a SIM card. The purchase of the SIM card activated the effect of receiving a gift when spending. What he received was a Super SIM card. Automatic and instantaneous registration that cannot be monitored and cannot be tapped. Just by putting in someone's information, you already get their number, it can't be intercepted, and you can call any number without needing credit. Our boy already knows that if he uses this the right way, it will help a lot with his plans. In the room of the round girls, the milkmaid asks the president what she thinks of the protagonist already. In college, there are several rich guys, but his personality is quite unique. The president said she doesn't care about him since he's nothing special. Right at that moment, a message arrives. It's from our protagonist who already used the NASA card to get her number and sent the message, "Hello, monitor, it's Han Lee, but don't give my number to anyone." But then her friend says, "Did you add Han Lee to the college group?" She feels a little sad thinking that today he said not to give it to anyone, but he entered the messaging group. Changing scenes, our protagonist wants to find that forum where she posts her novels, but even after searching for a while, he can't find anything. Maybe that means she hasn't created it yet. Until after researching a lot, he finds her username there, but when he tries to be friends, she has a questionnaire before accepting friendship. Who am I? Who are you and why do you want to add me? Our boy writes what he thinks will convince her and goes back to the room. Again, the thick babe calls him to sit close, while the other girls in the room comment that she doesn't stop flirting. Even our protagonist finds it strange because as friendly as she wasn't that clingy. Looking at the president, he thinks, the bait has been cast, now it's just a matter of waiting for her to take it. Meanwhile, the big-haired guy in the classroom is boasting that his family owns 4 buildings worth millions. But our protagonist knows very well that he's not that rich, and that in reality, his family owns 5 or 6 houses amidst those buildings, and the buildings belong to the entire family. But with so many people involved, the profit isn't that great. You can't say the guy is poor, but he doesn't have as much as he thinks. In the eyes of the president, that guy over there is rich, but he's really dumb. Not very good looking and has no personality whatsoever, while the one who catches her attention the most, she looks at our protagonist and sees him as complete in every aspect. The big-haired guy notices that the protagonist is studying a lot and asks if he plans to pass the exam and why he's studying so much. Our guy says he hasn't decided yet, but he appreciates the concern. A guy points to his own face saying he'll eat half a kilo of crap from the milk girl if our protagonist passes. The guy is taking advantage of the situation to reveal his preference. Hanley takes advantage of the situation and says, "You say that as if you're sure she's going to feed you." The milk girl feels awkward, tapping his shoulder, but he says he was just joking. She tells him to stop imitating the disgusting behavior of those guys. The pink-haired girl says she found it funny. The big-haired guy gets angry, thinking that when he says it, it's disgusting, but when he says it, it's funny. So he tells our protagonist that if he passes the exam, he'll let him live rent-free in his house for 3 years. Our protagonist just ignores it, thinking he's just seeking attention. Then he replies, "Thanks for the offer. I'll think about it." There's silence in the room and everyone thinks our hero didn't realize he was being humiliated, but in reality, he doesn't care. The president praises him, saying he's very calm and has a good aptitude for learning, and seeing him solve all those math problems, she believes he'll pass. Our protagonist is confused, thinking, is that crazy president praising me? Did something happen? The big-haired guy is kind of skeptical that our guy is really intelligent, so he says, "I doubt he's solving difficult problems," and grabs the notebook from him to see what he's writing. Without understanding anything, he says he wrote things, apparently. But then a smart girl comes and grabs the notebook, looks at it, and says, "The answers are correct, but why isn't there anything written here? No calculations, where's your process?" The protagonist takes the notebook back from her, saying those calculations are too easy, so he solved them mentally. Now he's hit the nail on the head, and they all come happily asking if he could give a private lesson in their room. The big-haired guy gets even more angry, especially when he sees the president talking to our protagonist. He then tries to salvage the rest of his ego, saying maybe with a decade of work, he'll be able to at least buy a little house or make the down payment. "If you need a place to rent, just let me know. My family has some houses." The milk girl is really a gold digger and wonders if Hanley really has money. While the psycho president is eager to see Hanley humiliated and defeated. But out of nowhere, the protagonist starts laughing in the big-haired guy's face and says, "What kind of luxurious house does your family have?" The guy says all the houses of his family are incredible and luxurious. But now he's going to be caught in the lie because our guy tells him, "Don't tell me you consider the collective contribution of all the people in your family to that building as your property, do you?" The guy is somewhat embarrassed and says what our protagonist is saying doesn't make sense. And the people in the classroom want to know what's going on. The protagonist says to him, "Building number 4 in Yangpu District, a small building with an elevator and 4 apartments per floor. Over the last 3 generations, your family has managed to buy 8 of them, but you live in 2 and share the profit. I'm not trying to belittle you, but does anyone here know which of the Yangpu properties is considered extremely luxurious in the real estate market?" The protagonist puts on a smug look and says, "I find it a bit strange that you're acting all high and mighty at the expense of 3 generations of your family." Just then, the teacher enters the room and there's silence. The wicked waifu there is looking at the big-haired guy and thinking he's a loser because he didn't respond at all. And she's obviously impressed by how the protagonist reacted to the situation. She's already got her pen in her mouth thinking she's going to write a novel now about a dominant CEO and use him as a model. But she's having to try to calm down because throughout the entire class, she just wants to keep looking at our reincarnated friend. The end of the class arrives, that friend calls again to go to the cafeteria. But our protagonist says the cafeteria is too expensive. They can't just be spending money there. Just then, he receives a message on his phone and she shouts, "Stop lying, you have a new phone there and can't buy a snack at the cafeteria." He says that's exactly why, since he spent all of his money on the phone and now he's broke. Biting with anger, she tells him to hurry up, she'll pay for everything. Our guy warns that he won't pay her back. She replies that it doesn't matter, and let's just go. Hanley is impressed with how inflated she is. She grabs him by the wrist to take him away, and he says, "All right, when it comes to living off others, I'm good at that too." The other girls laughed, and she's thinking, living off others? Then she pinches him, asking what he means by that. He replies, "Hey, it's no big deal. I just said that because I usually eat at regular cafeterias." But she's feeling insecure, thinking he believes she's a gold digger. The girl with green hair says, "Relax, I'll pay for your things, it's okay." The protagonist finds it strange, both of them seem very interested in him. But he's more concerned about how he's going to make money. The girl with green hair wants the purest love possible and wants to get married soon, so it's not going to work. And the one on the right wants to marry a rich guy, so that's also not going to work. For him, for now, it's better to just chill. The short-haired one thinks our protagonist is definitely a rich guy to be acting so disinterested around beautiful women. He must have a lot of them around him. And if that's the case, she needs to get him. As long as his family is rich in the end, it's worth it. She's about to say something, but the girl with green hair cuts in again and says, "You bought a bunch of new skincare products. Let me pay for him." She feels a little embarrassed because in reality, she didn't buy anything, it was all a gift from an admirer. So she says she can pay for him, but the girl with green hair says it's okay, but she shouldn't come crying afterward. On the way, they're all interested in him, asking lots of questions. Why did you change your phone? Have you ever been in a relationship? Why haven't you been in one? What kind of woman do you like? What kind of woman do you not like? The other guys are all thinking he's a damn lucky guy. They keep insisting until he responds, "The type of woman I like doesn't need to be exceptionally beautiful, but she needs to be kind and share the same values as me and be a good person to be around." They think it's understandable why he's alone. He's very traditional and demanding. The protagonist asks them, "What quality do you think makes a woman the best?" The milk girl says she has no idea, but in reality, she's thinking, "I'm all inflated and mine are huge." That's what guys like, right? The green-haired girl says what matters is what you like, but she's thinking, "Damn, the president is beautiful and the other one is just inflated. I'll have to find another way to win this." The president isn't liking this joke. She's not even getting involved, but she's being dragged into the comparison. A little while later, everyone's at the cafeteria eating. Hamley shows up with cake for everyone. They're impressed since that's quite expensive. He tells them to enjoy it. While the president is staring at a giant strawberry, he tells her to enjoy it a lot. He got the flavor she likes. After all, he was her simp in the past life. The inflated girl asks why he spent so much money on them. He says it's okay since they also spent a lot on him, practically throwing a banquet for the protagonist. The girls are all around the protagonist and the two of them are always wanting to talk to him. From afar, the confused president wonders, both of them are beautiful, so why isn't he doing anything? Our guy offers the last tangerine to her, but she says she doesn't want it. Obviously, this rascal is only interested in her and is thinking, "You messed with me so much in the past. How am I going to make you pay for it?" Things are just getting started. Time passed, and our protagonist continued exercising, studying, planning everything, and living his routine. And strangely, in the meantime, he became a celebrity in the dorm, the guy chased by a bunch of thick babes. He sees a message in the college group where people are organizing a trip to the zoo. He knows his popularity lately is only increasing. Then he receives a message from the president saying they're going to the safari park tomorrow, but he doesn't need to worry because she already paid for his trip. This is the first time I'm spending money on a man. Our protagonist, realizing she's upset, thinks, "I'll talk to Lil Cucumber," which is actually her pen name on the site where she posts her works. During this time, he's been spending money as her supporter on the site. And for the first time, he receives a message from her saying, "Thank you for the donation. I'm touched." Our guy thinks she finally took the bait, but for now, he needs to confirm that it's her. He takes advantage of this response to ask for her number, if there's any readers group, and if she's planning to release any new work. And depending on the answer he gets to any of these three questions, he'll be sure it's her. And with that, he confirms her identity. The next chapter begins with everyone going to the safari. Our protagonist arrives at the subway station, and the girls are already greeting him. The president arrives looking all cute, saying she'll buy tickets for everyone. And the guys are thinking her legs are amazing. But our guy, on the other hand, thinks those are just stick legs. But he's sneaky, and he already remembers that in his past life, she started going to the gym and got really thick. The rascal is just thinking her body is going to be graceful. A while later, one of the friends grabs his arm, and the other one grabs his arm too. The guy is surrounded. He finds it confusing because in his past life, both of them ignored him. But he doesn't want to get involved in all this silly romance stuff. He crouches down, runs out, saying he needs to go to the bathroom. A while later, they've already arrived at the safari. But our protagonist is alone while the girls are all sending messages asking where he is, but he's not in the mood to respond. Meanwhile, the president is also mad because he ran away without saying anything. And where is he? Until a message from him arrives asking for help. She thinks him asking me for help. I won't respond, but she takes a look and asks what's wrong. He tells her he has a stomachache and no toilet paper. She apologizes, but unfortunately can't go into the men's bathroom. Thinking he finally fell into her hands, but he says, "Ask the janitor, please." She tells him that if he wants a favor, he has to show the right attitude and beg for it. He tells her to hurry up, he's begging. She tells him that if he compliments her properly, she'll help, and she thinks, if he calls me adorable and wonderful little fairy, I'll help him. But the protagonist calls her mommy, madame, and dear. She already gets angry thinking, damn, the heavens sent me this guy here to annoy me. That's why I have no interest in him. Until suddenly, guess who shows up? He was just playing with her heart. This is the ultimate strategy. A love story has to evoke emotions. It can't be a stagnant river. You make the woman frustrated and angry and then give her a mega surprise. This creates a contrast that generates emotional fluctuations. The scoundrel is leveling up that system just to pick up women and even brought ice cream for her. He tells her to hurry up and grab the big ice cream he took a long time to buy, and also that he needs to use the bathroom because he's in a rush. She looks to the side and says, if you're in a hurry, just go. I don't want you here. You disgusting. The protagonist finds it funny to see her embarrassed. He takes the ice cream and says that if she doesn't eat it, he'll have to force feed her. In some states, this is considered a crime. They chat for a bit, and she's just giggling and giving him some side glances, thinking that she'd be lying if she said she didn't have any positive feelings, and in this case, she might give him a chance. It's at this moment that his system shows. You have acquired the flirting skill level 1. Hanley, not wanting to miss the chance, immediately upgrades it with 180,000 points. He wants to know what effect he'll have with communication, persuasion, and flirting, all at level 3. He playfully messes around with the ice cream, but right then a child passes by and bumps into her. She falls onto our protagonist's belly, feeling embarrassed and moving away, but suddenly she's back sitting next to him. They keep talking until the short-haired friend sees the two sitting on the bench there. She thinks, so that's why he wasn't responding to my messages, because he's with her. But the fanfic writer comes running over and hugs her friend, creating a romantic scene. Our protagonist loves this scene. A little later, they're walking down Snack Street to grab some snacks. The big friend puts on some rabbit ears and asks if she looks cute. Our guy says yes and asks about the other two friends. She says they went for a stroll to buy some stuff. Hanley asks why she didn't go with them. She says she didn't go because otherwise he would be left alone. Then she grabs his arm, calling him to have some fun. They hang out in the park until at one point she sees a necklace. And our protagonist remembers that in his past life he gave her the same necklace, and she hated it. But now she's lying, saying she finds it wonderful. So she suggests they go take a look. She's all interested, but poor guy only remembers that he had to save up for a long time to buy it for her, and he never even saw her wearing it. He may not have any more interest in her, but he finds it strange that she's so in love with this item. He finds it funny and says he'll buy it for her, already telling the receptionist to keep it as a gift from him to his friend. In his mind, this is the last time he'll give a gift as a simp. After this purchase, everything will change. She seems very happy to receive this gift and wants to show it to her friends. But Hanley says it's better not to because it could cause discord. When the protagonist makes the purchase, he receives a pet collar from the system that gives 50 obedience and 50 happiness, and he wonders what to do with it. He thinks it would be good if he were raising a husky, but that's not the case. She then asks him to put it around her neck, and he does. She's very happy, but everyone outside can see it, and the president is feeling isolated. The protagonist thinks Lu Cheng right at a time like this, what if she misunderstands? But wait, why am I blaming myself? I have nothing to do with her. And I'm more interested in her online version. I couldn't care less about this offline one. He then approaches her and asks how she's doing. The green-haired one says they were getting ready to leave, but saw that he was busy with something. With that, the park outing ends and he's back home. Hanley is all happy when he talks to the president online but doesn't want to talk to her in person. He really is the king of 2D. On the app, he asks her when she's going to release a new book. She says it will take a little longer. She's been very frustrated lately with her content and isn't happy with the result. The protagonist, with his evolved writing talents, decides to give her some constructive criticism and says she needs to improve especially her amateur style and character development logic. She's impressed that he's actually right. These are my problems. Could he really read everything and be my fan? She thanks him for his words and asks, could you give me more specific feedback on how I can correct this? Now the protagonist feels confident and says, you're lucky that in this life, I'm an expert. He sends a text with a bunch of tips on how to improve her story. Seeing all that, she thinks it will be difficult to correct, but everything he said is completely correct. Our guy already thinks he can now cooperate with her to start the revenge operation. With that, they spend almost the entire night talking with him, giving several tips on how to improve. And start cooperation with her after talking for a while, he says he has an idea. He always wanted to write a story about a dominant CEO who has a wife with an intense romance. Obviously, he said this because he knows it's exactly the type of story she wants to write. He explains everything and asks if she would like to write this story with him. She ponders and the story advances to the next day, when they meet at the bookstore and she's still mad at him because of the necklace incident. Then she goes to the phone to vent with him, but she doesn't know, obviously. The days go by with him talking all day and all night about the book. A few days later, we see our protagonist eating but more interested in the psychopath's work on his phone, until a new face appears. His bald friend says, that's the beauty of international studies, she's wonderful. His partner says, stick here with us and come meet the guys from my dorm. She looks at the table and the scene changes with everyone talking. His friend introduces her, saying, this is Paige, the most beautiful and popular in the whole university. The protagonist feels embarrassed for her until the guy introduces him. This is Hanley, the king of the girls. Our protagonist interrupts the guy and says he'll introduce himself. Pleasure, I'm Hanley. Paige's friend seems to recognize the name and says, I've heard that name before. Aren't you the guy who's followed around by two beautiful girls every day? They even compete to see who gets to feed you, don't they? Our guy feels exposed and thinks, damn, this fame I'm gaining is ruining me. His friends are even pressed, asking him to teach them how to do it. Meanwhile, Paige tells them to order something to eat soon. The protagonist looks at her while thinking, in my past life, I only saw her a few times from afar. So the guy from my dorm is in the same class as her. If I'm not mistaken, she's extremely rich. It's interesting to see that she's willing to share the table with us commoners. Her personality is very different from the rumors. She says she can't drink much but will try to keep up. Our guy says her eyes are very different. She explains that they come from her mother, who came from afar. Our protagonist says they are uniquely wonderful. They continue this conversation until his friend nudges him and says, look who's over there. It's the president, who already notices the presence of our protagonist. The two recognize each other. The hottest girl in the university's human relations against the hottest girl in the university's finance. It's an intense duel. The president wants to know why the protagonist is sitting here with her. She then asks our guy what was going on there and says she was waiting for a message from him. He replies, I was with my dorm friends until some of their friends showed up, nothing special. But then his friend says, hey waiter, bring another chair for one more person to sit. Our protagonist gives him a stare and the friend thinks, did I do something wrong? Then the president sits down, but he says, we've been eating for a while and there's only leftovers here. Why don't you order something to eat and take it home? In other words, he said, get out of here. The president, who's not naive, understands and gets up, saying, okay, I understand. I'm leaving so I don't bother you guys. But the protagonist doesn't seem to care about her leaving. But our guy, who by this point I'm starting to think is a psychopath, got up and went to the bathroom to talk to her on his secret account. He asks if she's okay, what happened. She said he has no idea and explains, I went to sit with my classmate friend that I mentioned, but he just ignored me and didn't even want me to sit with him. Sometimes he treats me well, and sometimes he treats me badly. The protagonist says he's just playing hot and cold with you and teasing you all the time, don't fall for it. She says it must be that, and that's why she left without looking back. From now on, she won't care about him anymore. Hanley returns to the table and says he's leaving. He throws his wallet on the table and tells his friend, you pay the bill later, and if anything happens, let me know. Meanwhile, the president is in line, texting that she's angry and wants to eat fried rice. At that moment, our protagonist appears with the fried rice already bought and says to her, he was feeling very confident, saying he would pay for a meal for her. He commented that the fried rice he brought was better than the store's. She didn't react, so he asked what was wrong and if she wanted to switch. He tried the store's rice and found it expensive and bad. The store owner and she wondered what he was talking about. She thanked him for his kindness but declined, saying fried rice would give her pimples if she wasn't in the mood to be around him. She left, making him realize she was angry. Our protagonist questioned why she was angry, wondering if something had happened between her and Panji. He received a message from her on his phone saying the dog tried to deliver rice to her, but she ignored it and left. The protagonist commented that he would give her some credit this time. She said she was going back to the dorm to write because she was tired of being angry with him. Our protagonist then gained 2,000 experience points reflecting on her personality. He concluded that she didn't like anyone invading her space but wanted to invade others' space. He thought about helping her realize and correct this behavior quickly, becoming a psychologist, planning to return to the table with her. A guy saw him with 2 bags of rice and commented about him being hungry, but everyone had already eaten. The protagonist explained that he would take it home and pay the bills. The store owner questioned him about the bags of rice, and another friend defended him, asking them not to meddle in his life. Pangi intervened, saying they were also leaving, and the protagonist said goodbye. Back in the room, the guys invited him to go out. He asked about the place, and the friend with glasses had a contact. They would call some girls from the theater university for karaoke. The protagonist asked if they would sing together and wondered if she was inviting him to pay the bill. The friend warned him to be careful with his words. Our boy explained that he wasn't interested in paying the bill for pretty women and wasn't that interested in them lately. He declined the invitation because he needed to study for a finance competition that would happen in 3 rounds, with the winner taking 1 million. Thinking of taking the opportunity to test the system and make money. The holiday ended and they returned to school, where the girls wanted to stick around him. Feifei asked about the story and he explained it was just a casual meeting. Asking if that was all, he confirmed, and commented that he could have been kinder to her. The 3 girls entered the room. He looked at Tintin and she stared back. Suddenly, the class ends without interpersonal relations. The protagonist looked at Tintin thinking if his behavior was wrong but decided to ignore it. The 3 girls went to eat together after class. She was just thinking that yesterday was weird. But the protagonist is terrible, didn't even talk to her today and still pretended nothing happened. At the table next to some troublemakers. One says their table is lively and asks if they don't want to join them and that they would even pay. Tintin apologizes but refuses and complains about the excessiveness of men who start conversations with her. The guy approached her asking her not to be so cold and asked which university they were from. She interrupted and responded from a different one than his and that it wasn't of his interest. One of them, sweating, asked the other to call the protagonist, and desperately she started typing to call him. Another guy went to her and said that since she was typing so much, why not give her number? Tintin stood up and said that was harassment, and that if they kept bothering them, she would call the police. Mockingly, the guy said she was quite fierce, and asked if that was considered harassment, because they just wanted to pay for lunch and asked for a chance. While grabbing Tintin's wrist, he asked her not to be so shy. The protagonist arrived and asked what was happening. Tintin, seeing him, was happy, saying he finally arrived. The delinquent asked if our boy was with them, calling him lucky for being with such dense girls. The guy then asked which one was the protagonist's, asking him to introduce him to the others while squeezing Tintin's arm. Our boy approached and grabbed his arm, asking where he thought his hand was. The delinquent, suffering, asked him to let go, calling him a lunatic. The protagonist asked if he thought that was crazy, while asking what other people would think of him harassing girls. The delinquent didn't like it and asked if he couldn't want to get to know more people, already heading towards the protagonist with a punch. But our boy has the hacks. Giving a slap on the hand and another on the foot, he finishes with the guy immediately going to the ground. The protagonist looks around and says that he started it. The delinquent's friends and everyone in the store look at him. Our boy asks what the girls are doing and tells them to leave, because they don't want to eat in a place where everyone is staring at them. The gold digger babe loved that the protagonist taught the guy a lesson, while he's asking Tintin if she's okay. Our boy says he is happy anyway and turns around. He looks back and asks her what she thought of that move. She is confused, not knowing what he is talking about. He says he knows she reads those novels where the guy shows up and saves the princess, saying he is the prince of this story. She says that has nothing to do with it and it doesn't make sense. But she was caught off guard and wonders how the protagonist knew what she was thinking. Some time passes and the girl is all excited that her novel was approved. The only strange thing she found was that the guy asked to change the main character's name to Han Lee. In a finance class, the protagonist was using the notebook. The professor, seeing this, said that if he is the smart one, he should show it, since he didn't want to pay attention. Our boy went up front and gave a class showing he is a genius, and the babes were fascinated as always. The professor was impressed, and this information reached Pangy's ears. She thought the protagonist was an interesting guy. In the next class, the girls came to ask our boy questions. Seeing that bunch of girls, the president got jealous and went to ask some questions too. However, the protagonist interrupted her, saying he would answer first the others who asked. Obviously, she didn't like that, and went to complain to him, but on the phone. In the messages, she says she hates that guy, because she lowered her status to go talk to him, who showed no reaction. The protagonist on the secret account asked if they still hadn't made up and what was going on. She says it's strange since it was just for 2 roommates who were hanging around him. Now all the girls in the class are around him and that irritates her. The protagonist on the secret account starts attacking her, asking her why she is so angry, and if it's because there are many girls around or because she likes him. She replied she doesn't like him and is just curious how he manages to do all that even though they are the same age. The protagonist from the web tells her that if that's the case, she should show she's even better. He tells her to publish this book and be successful and show him the results. She already imagines herself with all the success and the protagonist humbling himself for an autograph. A week later, it is making a little success, but our boy throws a bucket of cold water, thinking that he has to prepare for the competition worth $1 million so he won't be able to write all day. He then tells her that she will have to write some things that were his, but she gets a higher percentage for it. She says that's okay, the only problem is that there are some scenes she doesn't know how to do, because she has never been in that situation, like the scene where she is dominated. But the protagonist, on the other hand, is also inexperienced when it comes to that, and wonders if he can use the internet, but then has an idea. He remembers he got the dog collar. The next day starts with Tintin going to pick up a package. The protagonist asks what she is going to get and offers help. She brutally rejects and says she will get it herself. The box is a package that arrived from the protagonist, but it is him only as his writer version from the internet, so she doesn't know it's from him, but she is all happy looking at the box. Our boy arrives asking what's in it and why she is so happy looking at it. She says it's none of his business, but the rascal is thinking that it is. After all, he made all this effort to give this gift. That's when the short-haired babe Union finds the two together once again. She is angry because as far as she knows, Tintin was supposed to be giving the protagonist a hard time. So she already comes for the sure attack and throws his arm for an adventure, asking what they are going to eat together today. Our boy takes his arm off and says that today he is going to eat with Tintin, so she will decide. The poor girl is confused, wondering what is going on and if they are together again. In the cafeteria, she wants to give all the food to the protagonist to turn him into food. But she is thinking that if President Tintin enters the competition, it is the end of her and the other girls' chances. When they were eating, Yunyan raised her hand and greeted someone. The president looks back and sees Panji approaching. She sat next to him but didn't show any interest in talking. The Emian said the atmosphere was weird and asked the protagonist what was happening. He ignored her and went to relax a bit with Pangi, talking about waking up early to enjoy the empty cafeteria. Tintin didn't like this relaxation at all, wondering why they were talking so calmly. To try to end the conversation, she gave him a tangerine and told him to eat it. Panji, seeing Tintin offering the tangerine, thought that she liked Han Li, or maybe she was trying to get back at him for the last time. Panji's friend gave a jewel to the protagonist, saying that he was incredible for always getting the girl's attention. He said that those without shame are truly invincible, and asked Panji's friend if she also wanted to support him financially. Embarrassed, she said that wouldn't work because she didn't have the money for it. But if he asked Panji, she could support him because she had a lot of money. The protagonist said that a meal in the cafeteria wasn't her style. Yunyun didn't like this conversation, thinking that she was already competing with the president and now Panji was entering the fray. She felt she was losing all of her chances, so she needed to change the subject. She then asked Tintin what she had bought, already looking at the box. Tintin responded that she hadn't bought it and a friend had sent it to her. Yunyun asked if it was that friend she talked to all day on the internet. Tintin, angry, grabbed the box from her hand, telling her not to meddle in her life. Panji's friend said she understood, and that since Tintin was very beautiful, she must receive many gifts from various admirers. Tintin said she didn't accept anything from admirers and that it was just a jewel from a friend. Already handing the gift to Yunyun to open, she was thinking that whoever sent it probably didn't send anything strange. It was probably a jewel or something like that, and if she kept hiding things, it would become more peculiar. Yunyun took and opened the box, and praised the packaging of the gift. Tintin got worried, wondering if he hadn't sent anything strange, and that it should be an earring or a necklace. Tintin dropped the gift on the floor and asked her what it was. To no one's surprise, it was the protagonist's collar. Tintin was wondering how she was going to explain this, because if it was just the necklace, it would be fine. But it came with a collar. The two, seeing that the gift was a collar, kept tossing it back and forth. The girls nearby were wondering why she had received a dog collar. Panji began to imagine something. She hadn't imagined that these best friends were so close. Panji's friend said the gift was amazing, so they must have a lot of fun. Poor Tintin tried to explain, but she couldn't, complicating things even more with each word. So she asked Yunyun for help, but Yunyun said she respected her preferences, but she liked men. Tintin didn't understand why Yunyun had said that and was confused. Panji approached and said that as long as it didn't hurt anyone, people's preferences should be respected, and that she genuinely appreciated it from the bottom of her heart, telling her to continue being herself. The protagonist started laughing in her face. Impressed by unique preferences of the class president, she slapped him and thought everything was ruined now. Because of all the pressure and anguish, she couldn't take it and started crying at the table. Yunyun, feeling awkward, asked why she was crying in front of everyone. On the other hand, she thought that with Pangi out and her other competitor having a special hobby exposed, she had an advantage. She looked at the protagonist and asked if he could talk to Tintin, but she didn't understand the protagonist's look, who was judging the girl. But he came over and said everything would be fine and told her to stop crying, even buying her an ice cream. He told Yunyun to keep an eye on her while he went to get the ice cream. She found it peculiar, because Hanli always ignored Tintin's drama, but now he wanted to please her just because she was crying. But then she realized, since the protagonist never said he didn't like her, he only said he didn't like her personality, and that his so-called disinterest was just a provocation. She realized the protagonist was playing on the girl's weak point, but she wouldn't accept that. When our boy bought the ice cream for Tintin, he activated the system that gave extra rewards, gaining a candy that increased the person's obedience to him and made them accept some requests. The protagonist thought this gift arrived at the perfect time. Returning, he told Yunyun to go back to class, because he would take care of her since she wasn't feeling well. Yunyun just left, saying she would hold the seats and wait for them. From the table, Tintin said she didn't need them and told them to leave. He told her not to act like it's Sundeer and take the ice cream he bought. She said she was tired of his game of provoking and then giving ice cream. The protagonist said that if she took a bite, he would teach her how to get out of this mess. She looked at him with a pleading expression for help. Our boy said was fine and he would give her some ideas. She said she was fine and would believe him this time. He just stared at her, thinking how the game had turned compared to the past life. After a while, she finished the ice cream and asked what to do. Our boy said the solution was easy. She just needed to confess in public. She was incredulous with the response. Hanli said it was simple, and asked why she cared that people knew about her hobby, that she should just tell everyone already. She then gave him a vampiric bite on his arm. Angry, she said she knew she couldn't trust him. The protagonist said he was kidding, and that she should just be cold to those who laughed at her, telling her to humiliate anyone who laughed. She asked if he was telling her to be a domineering queen. Our boy said she didn't need to pretend, but just be herself a little more. She said she was leaving because he was just annoying and not helping at all. The protagonist said she had a queen's personality, but he was afraid she might pull out a whip and hit him. She tried to explain, but changed her mind and said nothing. He suddenly became a psychologist, saying he understood that she must have her reasons, but she had to do what she wanted, and what others thought didn't matter, because she couldn't give up her dreams due to public opinion. Hearing this, Tintin was happy, but the sly protagonist, while saying these things, took out the system candy, asking if she felt better and offering the candy. She quickly grabbed it from his hand and put it in her mouth, saying she would take it from him because she knew he was a glutton. Otherwise, he would ask for it back. The protagonist thought she fell for it so easily. Approaching, he reminded her that she wanted to experience those things, where he offered to help. She was embarrassed, remembering the novel, thinking that she needed to experience it to write the story correctly. But she snapped back to reality and pushed him away, asking if he was trying to deceive her again. She said she had class and left. The protagonist was surprised, but he knew it wouldn't be that easy, and that if it were that easy, he wouldn't have suffered so much in the previous life. The system candy had its powers, but it wasn't impossible to refuse. Back in his room, he was studying to win the competition. Suddenly, his friends entered. The one in the classes asked if he had heard that the class president was a lesbian. He was speechless, but asked where that rumor came from. The guy said that today during the break, she went to Pangy's class and confessed. The protagonist was shocked and asked him to explain properly. His friend said the scene was unbelievable. As soon as the class ended, Tintin walked through the door, and although she had a smile on her face, she had an indomitable aura. She immediately went to Pangy, who didn't know what was happening. In the blink of an eye, she grabbed Pangy's hand, pulled her by the arm, and confessed for supposed love. But Pangy pushed her away, but she didn't get sad. She had a mischievous smile. After that, she even squeezed Pangy's butt and said she would use that gift with her. The guy with the glasses said the protagonist should have been there to see it. The bald friend asked what our boy thought that gift was, that even Pangy blushed when she heard it. Hanley feigned ignorance and said he didn't know, but he understood Tintin's plan. She wanted to involve Pangy in this mess so they could both sink together. Back in class, the green-haired babe Fife came to tell him everything. Hanley said he already knew everything, but Fife said she wished she had seen the scene with the two of them, and that it would have been wonderful. Hanley said it really would have been. Suddenly, Fife said that was how she wanted the scene and placed the protagonist's hand on her face. He was confused and wondered what kind of demonstration this was, and didn't understand why she was looking at him like that, finding it strange since this girl wasn't so shy and uncomfortable when she looked at him. Our boy, with his hand on his forehead, is at a loss about how to deal with everything that's happening. Then he remembers he has the secondary account. He quickly goes to chat with her on the computer. She obviously curses him because of the gift, asking what he was thinking by sending that collar and explaining that it caused a mess in the cafeteria. She explained that Union pulled that collar out in front of everyone to show it was hers, and that clearly Union wanted to harm her and ruin her chances with her man god. The protagonist is confused, wondering since when he is her man god. But this is just the effect of the system candy he gave her. Our boy, knowing Union from the past life, knows that she indeed showed the collar to everyone on purpose. Sometime later, the protagonist is returning to the classroom. Union calls him, but the president tells him to come to her because she has something to say. He asks what's going on, but she is happy because at least he didn't go to stick with Union. The president tells the protagonist that everyone is talking badly about her because of that thing, and maybe they will even try to take her position. It's probably that guy Liu Hong. The protagonist thinks of a wicked plan, telling her to buy 2 Marlboro Black and place them under the guy's desk. That way he has no chance of becoming president. She is surprised by his diabolical plan. Our protagonist says that if she doesn't trust him, she should come up with a better plan. The girl says she will follow the plan, especially since she is under the effect of the system candy. The protagonist teases her, saying she always asks him for advice, but she says she has helped him a lot too, so they are on equal footing. Our boy tells her to do whatever she wants, but not to ask him for more advice if things go wrong. She is caught by surprise and tells him that she doesn't get along with Pangy, and if Tintin doesn't show who's boss, she will never be able to handle her. The protagonist says he doesn't understand how girls' fights work. However, he wishes her good luck, because if she can't handle Pangy, she should find someone else, and he emphasizes that there's no reason to care so much. After that, even his instigation skill level increased, and the system congratulates him for gaining a bunch of useless skills. Sometime later at home, the instigation skills suddenly leveled up to 2. He is confused about why the level suddenly increased, and wonders who he instigated. In the chat, E and the girl are happily talking because the book is selling well. She talks about the protagonist in the classroom, and his internet version says she is always commenting about him. So why doesn't she make a move on him? Instigation gains more experience. She hesitates and says she would never chase someone, especially if it's Han Li. She says our boy is isolated studying, not to mention everyone thinks she's a lesbian now. So how can she chase someone like that? The internet protagonist says that's just for pretending, and if he's busy during the week, invite him out on the weekend. If you stall too long, he will really think you like women, and then you will lose him. Thanks to the system candy, instigation is working very well. She starts to think that if other people believe that, she wouldn't care. But if he starts to believe it, it will ruin everything. She sends a message saying it makes sense, and that she will try and see what happens. Sometime later, our boy is all tired running on the track when she arrives, greeting him good morning. Hanley asks how she is. At the same time, he says she's all dressed up and asks if she's going out with Pangy. She responds it has nothing to do with Pangy, asking if he finished the run, and that there's a new game room and if he wants to go with her. Though it was the protagonist himself who told her to ask him out, now he pretends to show no interest. Hanley, feigning disinterest, tells her to call Fife to go with her. She says embarrassed that Fifi is too scared so it won't work with her. Calling him once more, she says there are some things she didn't explain well and wants to talk to him along the way. He agrees to go but says he will charge for his time. Tintin responds asking if the price of the game room and lunch isn't good enough for him. The protagonist says it's almost enough, but he tells her to wait there while he goes to change his clothes. A little while later, our boy is back. Walking through the city, he suddenly calls out to her, saying he wants to explain a few things, and that he doesn't understand the reason for all this. Tintin is desperate because she doesn't know how to act in this situation. For a moment, she thinks about confessing, but she says she doesn't like him that much. Our boy says he knows, and he says she must have a problem with her relationship with Panji, so he tells her not to worry. Just talk to him, and he'll give her some tips. She goes towards him to hit him, but he asks her to calm down because there's no need for violence. Then they arrive at the place Tintin wanted to go, an escape room. The internet protagonist had given her the tip, telling her to take him to an escape room, and when something happens, pretend to be scared and jump on him, because the rest will happen on its own. But the girl genuinely seems scared. Hamley touches her back, turning around and getting startled. He apologizes for that, but says he's curious, not knowing what she wanted to ask. She tells him to shut up, asking if he doesn't know where they are, and that it's not the time to talk about that. At that moment, the flashlight's battery dies. A chainsaw zombie appears behind them. Outside in the cafeteria, she is trembling, saying it was very scary. Our boy says she talked about Fifi, but she suffered more than her. She says embarrassed that she didn't expect they had planned for the battery to die. He asks once again what she wanted to talk about, and she's a bit ashamed. He notices a lot of people watching and says he understands everything now. Since everyone thinks she's a lesbian, she wanted him to go with her to pretend she's interested in him, to use him as a shield. Already getting up, he apologizes, but he's focused on his competition, telling her to continue with her games. Tintin was confused, saying she really has a problem, but it wasn't to use him as a shield. She understands that anyone who gets close to her or Panji will get involved in this whole mess, but Hanley didn't even let her explain anything. However, she gets irritated and says she will resolve this with the person. She called Panji asking what she was doing, mocking that she missed her since it had been a long time since they saw each other and that she was hungry. Panji is angry that she caused all that confusion, and now Tintin wants to bully her for being alone. Panji gives a malicious smile and sends a friend request to the protagonist. He doesn't understand at first, but soon thinks that probably the president contacted her, and apparently she wants to involve him in all this to annoy Tintin. Panji says she got his contact from a friend, and says she has a reservation at a Japanese restaurant, but her friend can't go and invites him to go with her, saying he was the first person who came to her mind. The protagonist says that's fine, he has some free time for her. The girl thinks she's only seen him twice, but it's clear that the president likes him. If she messes with Hanley, it won't be a problem to deal with that lunatic president. However, he apologizes and says today won't work, because he already went to the escape game with a friend today and he will be busy until the evening, so this meeting won't happen. Hearing this, she's incredulous that he rejected her, because usually people cancel everything to talk to her. She responds that's fine and they can arrange for another day. But the girl realizes when she remembers that he said he went to an escape room with another girl. Assuming it was the president, she thinks she must be using him as a shield. But why? To divert people's attention? Saying he must know very well why he added her. Meanwhile, the president is calling her to go out. She responds that she's lazy and doesn't want to go, but thinks that this president really liked the escape room, because she said she would call Panji to go there too. With a malicious face, she plans something. Back in his room, the protagonist receives payment from the publisher and invests the points in writing experience. He was all engrossed thinking about the book, when Panji sends a message asking about him. Suddenly, we're teleported to the restaurant, and apparently the girl convinced the boy, and even asked if they were going to get drunk today. She says they have to make the most of this time, because it's not every day that our boy is available. She had to keep asking from October until the beginning of November just to get him to show up. Our boy feels a bit embarrassed, saying he was very busy. In reality, he didn't want to get involved because he had already refused twice, so refusing a third time would make her not want to be friends with him anymore. Panji asks if it's because of that competition he's preparing for. He replies that it's exactly that and that things have been very hectic. She asks him to let it go so it doesn't spoil the mood, asking him what he thinks of the restaurant. Something that looks like dirty water arrives, but in theory, it's an alcoholic drink. The protagonist says that with her presence, this place is radiant. She says she understands why the girls keep surrounding him, because he always talks in an interesting way. Our boy feels embarrassed, thinking that this girl's on a higher level compared to the others, and that he can't play games with her. The topics, the tone of voice, the expressions she makes. Not even with his level 3 psychology skill is it enough. Our boy got lucky that the waiter arrived just in time with the crabs all tied up. He notices that the food is very well prepared. However, when our boy is about to eat, she tells him to wait so she can take a photo. For a moment, he thought it didn't make sense for her to take a photo since she's so rich and it's common for her. Understanding the situation, he supposes there's another intention behind this photo. Pangi posts the photo and he says he doesn't use social media much. wondering if she tagged him in the post. In the description, it's written that she is at the Ownball restaurant with a classmate. In the photo, it's not just the food. It's him and 4KHER. He knew he was called here to mess with the poor president's life, but he fell right into the trap. She picks up a little ball with chopsticks and tells him to wait. Right at that moment, a voice appears calling her little Nana and asking if she's here dining with friends. Supposedly, the voice is her father's, and along with him is her uncle and a security guard. The old man says that his friends were there because they wanted to drink dirty water and eat a tied-up crab. Panji says that her mother will be mad if she finds out he's going out to drink. He changes the subject and asks her to introduce him to her classmate. Our boy raises his hand, greeting Panji's father. He introduces himself as Han Lee from the university. Her father approaches, asking if the protagonist is a friend from school, because it's the first time he's seen Panji going out to eat with a man. Hearing this, our boy feels embarrassed. The old man suddenly tells the protagonist that he supports him 100% in becoming friends with her, and that if their personalities match, the two can advance the relationship. Hearing this, Panji pushes him away, telling him to leave. With a smile on his face, her father waves goodbye to the protagonist, who reciprocates the gesture. He asks if they will continue eating. She sits down, responding, "What else would we do?" Our boy is wondering why her father was so excited. Changing the subject, Hanley asks what her father does for work. Panji didn't like that he called him dad, but the protagonist responds that he was joking. She says that if he goes up there and calls the old man dad, she will tell Hanley whatever he wants. He accepts the challenge. Desperate, she asks if our boy has no manners. Panji says she will explain so he doesn't do something crazy. Her father is on the school board, but he doesn't do anything related to the school. They talk a bit, and the protagonist asks why she is doing the international relations course. Panji says she didn't want to, but her family wouldn't let her stay in another because they want her close, and explains to the protagonist that it seems her family has an important business, but they don't trust her with it because they think she's stupid. So the family just wants her to stay in college for a while, find someone, and get married so as not to mess up the family business. But the protagonist, knowing her personality, knows that's not what she wants. At that moment, someone arrives, asking if Panji doesn't love her anymore for not inviting her to eat. It was the president, who immediately clung to Panji. The protagonist knows it's all an act. He's sure Tintin saw the post on social media and came running. Panji doesn't seem to be enjoying it. But at the right moment, someone appears saying that Panji's father is calling him for a talk. Hearing this, the two girls are left wondering what he wants with our boy. As he climbs up, the protagonist thinks the man is going to talk to him about his daughter getting involved with women. However, he says he doesn't know where the conversation will go. At the door before entering, he hears Panji's father saying he thinks his daughter is smart, but passing the whole company to her will be difficult. But if she could find a responsible husband, maybe together they could take over the company. Our boy freezes, wondering if the father is planning to pass the whole company to the son-in-law. Maliciously, he says it's a very rare opportunity, and it would be foolish not to take advantage of it. Sometime later, our boy appears opening the door, calling Mr. Pan uncle. Seeing the alcohol in the protagonist's hand, the uncle is surprised. Hanley says he didn't want to show up empty-handed and also wanted to thank him for his hospitality. The protagonist says he will serve, since he knows etiquette very well because his family was strict when he was young. The protagonist served wine perfectly, from the height and to the people in the right order. The man thinks the boy has incredible etiquette. He must have a very special family behind him. The father asks if the protagonist is from here because of his accent. He says no, he's from Dream City, but he just arrived in the capital and decided to live on campus to adjust. The uncle reveals he didn't call him for anything specific, but just that Panji doesn't go out much with boys, and if he could spend more time with her, take her to the mall to chat, it would be good. Telling him not to worry as he will pay for everything. Hanley thanks him, understanding clearly that the father is trying to set someone up to take care of the company. Our boy says he uses all of his free time to study, so he doesn't have much available to go out with her. Telling the father not to worry as Panji loves going out with the girls, so much so that one just arrived to chat with her. Mr. Pan is surprised and says he understands why Panji didn't come upstairs, but he knows many of her friends and asks who the girl is. Our protagonist responds that it's the class president Tintin. Her father tells him to go back down and eat with Panji, as he will pay for everything they order. The protagonist says goodbye, and the poor man gets desperate, saying he has to go see for himself. The uncles ask him to calm down, as if he goes down, he will end up scaring the kids. Downstairs, the president was clinging to Pangi. She asks what her father wanted with him. Our boy says it was nothing much. He just asked him to take care of his precious daughter. The crazy president says the protagonist doesn't need to take care of her. She will take care of her. She wants to know why he came to meet Panji, asking if he didn't know about the relationship. Hanley asks what she is talking about, because he came to eat for free, but he wants to know why Tintin showed up there. She says she felt like eating good crab, and that this is the only place. The protagonist knows it's not true. She just came there to keep an eye on him. Pandy is tired of this situation. She says Tintin should stop with this, as she didn't invite her, so she will have to pay for her food. Tintin says she will pay anyway, as she just received her allowance. The protagonist sees Panji's father coming down the stairs, trembling. At this moment, the president is talking and asks them to finish the crab quickly so he doesn't meet the two. The protagonist tries, somehow, to interrupt the situation. He's already thinking it's good that Panji's father doesn't have high blood pressure, as he's all sweaty. Our boy reflects that their relationship at the table is very loving. Panji questions why he is winking at her, not knowing the meaning of it. The father calms down and observes that they seem to be flirting. He questions what this talk is about, killing two birds with one stone, and if this is how young people nowadays solve their love problems. Tintin, provoking, thinks she's joking with Panji. She asks what the need is for a man, and if she isn't enough. She mentions her skills with those toys and claims they can handle it, highlighting her own skill. The father doesn't understand what this means. He wonders what's happening and even faints. An uncle had to hold him, clenching his fist and calming down, because they still have that young boy. If he can fix this negotiation, he can ask for whatever he wants. Panji tells the president to ask Fifi to do those things with her, as she knows she will like it. Despite this, she bets that Fifi would want to marry Hanli if he asked. The father misunderstood the situation. He thinks Panji called the protagonist to break up the relationship between him and the president, deciding that he will have to get involved. He approaches and asks how the food is. Panji responds by asking why he came there, mentioning he heard that a new friend of hers also came. He says he came to meet everyone, including Tintin. She greets Uncle Pan. The protagonist understands that the girls have no idea why Mr. Pan is there. Pointing to Hanli, the father explains that Panji is a bit reserved and doesn't have many friends she gets along with. He says the protagonist and Tintin are great kids, and invites them to visit their home in the future if they have a free weekend, promising to welcome them with great pleasure. Panji starts to feel that something is off. Her father has always been strict with any boy. She questions why he is being so inviting to Hanli and if there is something special about him. Seeing him smiling foolishly bothers Panji. She wonders why the protagonist is smiling and what her father sees in him. Panji doesn't notice anything extraordinary and decides she will find out what is so special about him. Back at home, the protagonist's friends are all in a room. He comments that he's surprised to see them there and not out. One of them explains that he was waiting for him to say something. Supposedly, a guy named Dan Zahal, one of the 3 richest at the university and Panji's #1 admirer, suddenly showed up and asked for information about him. The protagonist thanks for the information and his friends leave. Back at the computer, he transfers money to Tintin, who is surprised by the amount. He explains that the novel is doing well. The president asks if they will keep earning that much money next month. She says she wants to make a lot of money, and he asks why. Tintin reveals that a rich woman is interested in the man she loves and spent over 3,000 on crabs with him. The protagonist asks if she's afraid the woman will use money to win him over, and she confirms. Since it would be impossible in finance, he advises her to use her beauty to compete. The next day, everyone at the university is impressed by the president's transformation. Our boy compliments her, saying she seems to be in a great mood and asks if she got what she wanted with Panji the day before. Tintin responds irritably, saying she's not dressing up for the protagonist, so he should stop looking at her. He laughs and comments on her new elegant style. At that moment, the professor enters the room and announces a big competition for which the protagonist has been preparing. In the preliminaries, they will have test accounts to manage investment funds and buy stocks. Those who advance to the main stages will manage 300,000 and the finalists will have an account with 1 million, keeping the profits. The girls now want the protagonist's help, knowing he's been studying for this for a long time. Who doesn't like this situation is the long-haired guy watching from afar, irritated. The protagonist remembers that in his past life, it was around this time that Fifi started getting close to the long-haired guy who finished in the top 20% of the competition. But this time, he promises it will be different. The president challenges the protagonist, wanting to see if all the time he invested in studying was worth it. He proposes a bet to see who profits more from the investments. Tintin thinks it's foolish as the professor always praises him and he's been studying for a long time. The class suggests she get a 20% advantage. She agrees to the advantage and accepts the bet, feeling she can't be humiliated in front of everyone. Confident, the protagonist accepts the bet. He believes that based on his past life, he could give an 80% advantage and still win. Yeon asks what's at stake in the bet. The president, with the advantage, lets him choose what will be bet. Hanli says if she wins, she can ask for anything, and he will comply as long as it's within his capabilities. However, if he wins, she will have to forgive him unconditionally once in the future, no matter what happens. Tintin asks what he's planning to do. Our boy says it's nothing big, just something simple, like he went to a date with an attractive girl. The class is confused, asking what the logic is and if they have some relationship. Tintin is intrigued and asks what he's talking about, saying who he dates is her problem. The protagonist says that's fine and asks what she wants to bet. She responds that if he loses, he's prohibited from dating anyone for the 4 years he's at school. The protagonist accepts but thinks she's digging her own grave with this bet. Yeon comments that it's an exaggeration, asking how he will survive 4 years like that. The classmates think it's not a bad idea since with him out of the game, things will improve. Tintin's plan is simple. She hasn't decided yet, so she will keep him locked. The promise is made in front of everyone. And after that, Yeon invites the protagonist to eat. On the way, she asks if after eating he can take a walk in the park with her. The protagonist refuses, saying he's not in the mood. Yun tries to be cute, saying she understands what's happening since he's worried about the competition. She's sad but says she will always wait for him. The protagonist calls her dishonest, saying if he didn't know her from the past life, he would have fallen for that trick. He thinks all of her love is because she believes he's from a rich family, and if she discovered he's poor, everything would change in an instant. He ignores her and walks away. Yun comments that this attitude shows he had his heart broken. She believes he must be afraid of someone hurting him again and clings to his arm, determined to warm his heart. The protagonist finds it peculiar as even after reprimanding her, she seems more excited. Time passes, days go by, and finally the day of the competition arrives. The professor sits in the room and the protagonist opens the laptop. Everyone is ready to start investing. The president seems to be doing well, which impresses the protagonist. Everyone wants to know what he will buy. He takes a photo and shows that he bought a single stock. The protagonist put all his virtual investment into just one stock, which confuses everyone since he always taught not to do that. They insist he explain, and he sends a huge text because that's what he thinks will work. The next day, the protagonist arrives, hinting at Tintin by asking how her investment went. She replies that he only won one battle in this war and there are still many to come. He invites her to eat something and relax, but she says she can't because she needs to monitor the investments. The protagonist thinks he wanted to eat when Panji from afar calls him enthusiastically, and he knows something is coming. A friend asks what the protagonist wants, and he replies that anything will do. A guy snickers, identifying him as Han Lee. He realizes that Panji is trying to cause problems for him. The guy comments that the protagonist is poor and has nothing special. Panji says that's rude, but the guy insists he's just telling the truth. The protagonist remembers that she always had many admirers in the past life and wonders why she brought someone to use as a shield to trouble him. He concludes that the guy must be Dan Ziha. The guy tells Panji that interacting with someone like the protagonist will lower her social status, and also that he made her wait a long time. Panji pretends not to understand, agreeing that he took a long time to accept the invitation to eat lobster, but defending that he's working hard. Panji thinks that since she can't compete against the president, she will cause problems for the protagonist, remembering that he joked with her and even ate for free. She also doesn't understand why her father keeps telling her to talk to him. The protagonist pats her head while apologizing, which embarrasses her. He says not to wait for him next time and to listen to him. Panji is confused by his audacity, but she can't scold him because she was the one who invited him. She thinks that if she doesn't do anything, she will become a joke and he will try to use this to his advantage in the future. She decides to use her most powerful card, the silent accusatory stare technique, believing that by staring at the protagonist for 10 seconds, he will apologize. However, the protagonist thinks she is ridiculous, not understanding why it's not working. Panji wonders why the technique that always worked since childhood is not having any effect now. On the other side of the table, the jealous guy got angry. He was irritated with the protagonist for putting his hand on Panji. The guy thought that she hated being touched and wondered what kind of relationship they had. Panji adjusted her hair and commented that he shouldn't touch her head like that as it messed up her hairstyle. Zhao thought that messing up her hairstyle should be a reason for a much bigger scolding. He then greeted the protagonist, who stared back and suggested they should go out for a drink one of these days. Zihao, a bit surprised, agreed that they could. In the next chapter, Panji was back home reflecting on how being born into a rich family made many people envy her. She thought that having so much power sometimes created strange situations where people always asked for her help. She remembered what her father always said, that smart people stay away from those with a significant financial difference, because the richest don't need her for anything and the poorest just want her help. She punched the pillow, irritated with the protagonist, thinking that the first time they talked was smooth, but now he liked to embarrass her. At that moment, her friend ran into the room saying she needed to see something. The class competition ranking had come out that day. The student council compared all the top students and made a list. The friend asked if Panji believed Han Lee was on the list. Panji asked if being in 9th place was good. The friend said he wasn't just good, but probably an expert. Panji's expression changed, becoming intrigued, asking if he was really that incredible. The friend confirmed and asked why. Panji replied it was nothing much, but if he was that incredible, he would help her. Meanwhile, the long-haired guy was feeling smug. He had a good day of investments the day before, and everyone was praising him. Fife again announced that everyone should look at the forum because the national general ranking was being updated. The tired protagonist entered the room but noticed everyone was staring at him. An announcement was made for the entire school, informing that Han Lee from the finance department was ranked 7th in the nation. All the teachers and staff congratulated him. Feeling uncomfortable, he said he had forgotten that the rankings updated like that, but it was only the 3rd day, so it wasn't time for congratulations yet. The class surrounded him, and Union commented that the president would lose the bet. The protagonist said he thought not because he had looked at the stock the president bought and knew it would rise again. However, she arrived and revealed that she had sold it in the morning. Hearing this, the protagonist was surprised and asked what she was talking about. She revealed that she sold her stocks before yesterday and what the same ones he did. She didn't make as much as he did, but she got great profit. The protagonist thought she was cunning, realizing she just copied his stocks. Later, he was walking when the president approached, clinging to him. Our boy asked what she wanted and if she was trying to copy everything from him again. She replied that now that he set the standard for the class, an imitation wouldn't hurt. They saw a poster with the same message as the announcement but written. A student, curious, asked who this Hanley was and complained that the school was exaggerating by valuing such an insignificant prize. The president was furious, ready to fight everyone. Some students recognized the president and thought she had changed her taste. She clenched her fist, ready to punch, but the students ran away, thinking she was crazy. The protagonist patted her head, telling her not to worry when people talked badly about him because he didn't care about those things. The president was angry, telling him to get his hand off her head. At that moment, it became clear that it was Pangi using her father's influence to make the school announce and put up the posters. She had a plan. With this, all the other departments would keep an eye on him. Now, two things could happen. Either he would do well until the end and gain fame, or he would make a mistake and lose his reputation. The protagonist's friends entered the room and offered him something to eat, which he immediately refused. They were talking, and one of them commented that the school publishing this about Hanley so early would cause envy in everyone. The friend with glasses said that wasn't even the biggest problem because with the results not yet finalized and all this hype, the pressure on him would increase a lot. The protagonist was surprised by his friend's perception, thinking that if he did poorly, he would be embarrassed. But he was confident he would make a mistake. Watching the stock market opening time, he thought it was about to start and that he would win perfectly. Sometime later, the protagonist went to the teacher's room with the president and received an award. When they returned to the classroom, everyone applauds the two of them. With the tips our boy gave, Tintin ended up just 1.2% behind him. Sweating, she suggests canceling the bet for now. Sitting in his chair, the protagonist questions why she wants to cancel the bet. Tintin responds that she realized she was being overly confident and that they are on completely different levels. She thinks that with her current skills, the bet is a public execution. Back in his room, the protagonist notices that everyone in the chat is asking him for tips, wanting to know what he is doing. Suddenly, the professor bursts into the room with the finance department directors. The protagonist is surprised by the number of people in the room, and the professor praises the glory he has brought to the school, sincerely thanking him. The president of the student union and Minister Phi are also present, praising our boy. Everyone wants to interview him, but first the protagonist wants to ask for something, showing some difficulty. The protagonist declines the benefits offered by the directors, thinking he doesn't have any current problems and doesn't need any of that, especially if his performance is exceptional. However, he wonders if they are trying to buy him off with these small benefits. After the goodbyes, our boy returns to his room and is approached by Phi, who suggests exchanging contacts. He agrees to exchange contacts but warns that he doesn't read many messages. Meanwhile, the guy who was with Hanley goes to talk to the school director, asking him to look at the proposal made for the protagonist and sign the document. The director is surprised to learn that Pangi asked him to keep an eye on our boy. After signing the document, the guy is happy, thinking this will help the protagonist receive a promotion too. The director then decides to deliver the news to him and calls Pangi. He thanks her for the recommendation and says they will invest many resources in our boy, while provoking Pangi, saying the boy would have gone unnoticed if she hadn't informed them. Pangi is frustrated, realizing that her plan to harm the protagonist backfired. While she's in the room, people who come to talk to her already scold her. Tired of this, she goes for a walk, lamenting that nothing went as planned. When she arrives home, the maid informs her that her father is looking for her, leaving her with a bad feeling. When she gets there, he asks how her relationship with that classmate has been lately. Suddenly, we teleport to the room where the protagonist is taking advantage of the time to write several chapters of his novel, so that when the competition returns, he will have everything ready. When he receives a message from the girl from the beginning, she asks if he is in the finance department of this school. The protagonist responds that he is, but wants to know why she's asking. He thinks it's been a long time since they contacted each other, because with different routines, sometimes it's inevitable. That's why long-distance relationships don't last long. The girl wants to know who is the person from the finance department number 1358. Our boy asks if she participated in this competition too. She says her friends participated just for fun but ended up being defeated early on. However, her friend mentioned that a prodigy appeared in that school and she wanted to know who it was. The protagonist says she only remembered him because of someone in his class and that she really has no heart. The girl responds that it's his fault for always being busy. She comments that her best friend's brother lives in his area and she's going to visit him with her friend this weekend. The girl asks if they can meet. In his thoughts, the protagonist says he misses her. However, he is a bit worried, since he has changed a lot since the last time she saw him. But although it's hard to explain, he'll find a way, thinking that if she didn't come, it would be better, but there's nowhere to run. He will just make the most of it to have fun. Back at Pangi's house, her father calls her. She turns and says she is very tired today and asks if they can talk about it tomorrow. The father says yes, and they will talk later, but that's when her mother arrives. The mother asks if she is tired, and if it's too much stress or if she is thinking about someone. The mother says it's bad to keep things inside and asks her to speak up because she would give her advice. Pangi responds that it's nothing much, but she already starts to wonder why the two of them showed up out of nowhere. She says they both commented about her friend and asks what happened. The father explains that he has been trading on the stock market lately, but is losing money. The girl says she heard that there are only pennies left in his stock account and asks why. She starts thinking about investments and Han Li. Mr. Pan says he lost everything and got scolded a lot by her mother. But Uncle Zhang said that a student at her school did very well in the competition and that he is even an acquaintance of hers. The father asks if she could invite him to come and teach a thing or two. The mother says her head hurts when she looks at her father's investments and that she needs to help. And that if our boy is so good, they might even let him manage the account. Pangi looks shocked. The mother tells her not to be scared, they will take care of him. The girl starts to think that something is wrong and wonders if they think she is with Han Li. She stands up and says it's impossible. The mother asks why, and Pangi responds that our boy is still very young and that it's impossible for him to be that skilled. Besides, it would be improper for her to invite a boy to eat at her house. The mother suggests he might accept and asks why she doesn't ask, also suggesting that she invite a classmate to come with him. The mother decides and asks if he is free tomorrow night, because they will prepare a dinner for everyone. Seeing that there's no way out, Pangi agrees. The father and mother continue talking in the living room, wanting her to get along very well with the protagonist and maybe needing to give a little push. The next day, the protagonist wakes up at 8 in the morning exhausted and already has a message from Pangi. She says that her father heard about him winning the competition and wants to invite him to help with investments, and that it will be tomorrow at 6 in the evening. The protagonist notices that her tone seems angry and that this was very sudden, suggesting it was the old man's idea. He sends a message saying he understood. Pangi says he didn't understand anything. She says she will invite the president too and suggests they arrange a time to meet. The protagonist is surprised that she invited Tintin and realizes something is up. At that moment, he receives a message from a girl saying they are arriving in the city and asking if he wants to eat something together. She mentions that the genius who won the competition is her friend, confirming that she is very close to him. Her friend says that her brother is arriving. The girl says the protagonist is also arriving. Our boy appears and the girl hears a familiar voice, and when she turns around, she observes how he looks. She comments that it looks like he swapped his head. The protagonist says he just changed his haircut. She gets excited and mentions that she said he was ugly. But it seems that back then he was swollen from the injuries and she didn't see properly. Her friend next to her comments that he is the genius. She introduces herself as Jin Shang, best friend and roommate. Our boy feels a bit embarrassed when someone arrives calling her sister Yang Fei and saying they made her wait a long time. The voice was from the protagonist's classmate. The classmate was in denial, asking why brother Li was there holding his sister's hand. She looked and told him to come closer, then introduced Han Li to her brother Jing Yu. The protagonist thought it was a coincidence. The sister asked why the two were looking at each other like that. The friend suggested that everyone should interrupt suddenly, commenting that they were hungry and should eat something before introducing themselves. The sister handed the bags to the protagonist, saying she trusted him, but Jing didn't like that. He already imagined a dark marriage, saying she would marry a lunatic, and he didn't agree with that. Jing yelled at the protagonist, asking what he wanted with his sister, calling him brother-in-law, and after that, everyone started laughing at him. The protagonist didn't understand anything. The sister smacked her brother on the head. Then the siblings went to get food, while the protagonist and the girl went to find a table. On the way, she tripped and fell into his lap. At that moment, Yun saw the two and had the feeling she saw his true girlfriend. She approached and asked who his friend was, commenting that she looked different because she had never seen her before. The protagonist replied that she was a schoolmate. She deduced that the girl must be someone he dated back in school. She commented that the girl was pretty and questioned why the protagonist hadn't introduced someone like that before. The protagonist didn't like this conversation much, and Yun noticed the situation. She might not have such a good body, but the aura she carried was perfect for a first love. Yun asked why he didn't introduce her. Our boy was about to say something, but she had already introduced herself. She said she was Yun, a classmate of his and a good friend. Asking the girl's name, she said she was Shen Yang and commented that Han Li was quite popular there, because she was afraid he wouldn't adapt. Manipulative Yun exposed the protagonist, saying he was doing very well, being the best friend to all the girls in the class, and that even the president liked him a lot. Shen asked if it was true and commented that her father also said so, giving him a pinch. Shen Yang aggressively commented, asking if she liked him too and if she had made any progress. The girl thought she shouldn't get upset with our boy's relationships since they had nothing together, but she got annoyed because she had known him longer and had an incredible history with him. Seeing the protagonist and Yun's reaction, she realized their relationship wasn't very advanced. At that moment, her friend appeared, and Shen pulled her by the arm, commenting that she couldn't help with Han Li because her friend already liked him. The friend asked why she was suddenly pulled and what was happening. Shen asked her to participate in the act and said she would pay her back later. Yun asked why another person was involved and what was going on. She looked at the protagonist, who had a strange expression, wondering what that face was. At that moment, the president arrived too. She asked the protagonist if they were going out together at night and suggested he take a shower. Tintin commented that he said he had friends coming to see him and apparently it was those two. Introducing herself as Han Li's class president, the protagonist wondered if he should play dead. On one side, the president and the friend with whom he wrote the book together. And as much as it seemed like he had an advantage in this situation, he should stay quiet and not make things worse. On the other side, his dream, his childhood crush, and someone he never thought he would have a chance with in life. The good part was that none of them were his real girlfriend, so in theory, there shouldn't be a problem. The bad part was that no matter whom he helped in this situation, he would complicate things with the other. The president asked if she was a schoolmate and if Shenyang was a legendary ex-girlfriend of that boy. Shenyang, with 200 IQ, realized she didn't know what the protagonist had told them, but she knew he didn't have an ex-girlfriend, thinking that maybe they were trying to guess things. She said that the two were thinking too much, that Hanley didn't have an ex-girlfriend but just a crush. Yumyun and Tintin were surprised, thinking it was impossible. They asked what she meant by that, and if she was the crush. Tintin commented that from what she knew, he wouldn't be secretly admiring anyone, because if he really liked someone, he would say so directly. Shenyang commented that maybe the women assumed he liked them and therefore kept paying for his meals, saying she heard about it. The protagonist's situation did not improve, and the president, hearing this, became furious and insulted Shenyang, calling her chubby. She says that Shenyang doesn't know what she's talking about, asking what this talk is about, giving him food and stating that they are happy just helping. Shenyang gets mad at being called chubby, but when she's about to insult the president, she notices her body is perfect. Shenyang turns to complain to the protagonist, asking why he put her in that situation, with a bunch of people wanting to hassle her. The protagonist tries to think of what to do. He gets a crazy idea, puts his hand on his face, and says that he never believed in love at first sight, but now he does, saying he likes her very much and asking if she wants to be his girlfriend, addressing Jing's sister. No one believes it, and she gets all shy and runs away. Shenyang can't believe it, asking if he likes her, thinking it's impossible. The protagonist says he was joking, considering her a great friend and saying he doesn't want her to feel bad there. Shen thinks her reactions were exaggerated. However, she blames the president for starting the fight. Hanley takes a deep breath and tells the president that he never gave her permission to speak like that, which embarrasses her. The president realizes that the protagonist's line is directly from a line in the book she writes and wonders if he read her book and knows it was her who wrote it. She starts remembering the scenes she wrote, fearing that if he saw that, it's all over for her. Tintin apologizes, admitting she was wrong. Yunyun is surprised, saying she has never seen the president apologize in her life. Shenyang finds it strange, noticing that the girl was mad. But when the protagonist called her by name, she went quiet, suspecting there's a secret between the two. Shen thinks the best way to get out of the situation is to apologize too. She apologizes to the protagonist, saying she thinks she's also at fault, apologizing to Yunyun for anything she might have said and thanking her for taking care of the protagonist. Yunyun replies that it's okay and thanks her, saying they are all his friends. Our boy then asks the president to take Yunyun with her, saying he let it slide today, but next time he won't say he didn't warn. The president, in shock, responds that she understood, but thinks the protagonist will pay for this. Shenyang asks the protagonist if he likes the class president. He responds no and asks why she's asking. She says she noticed some interactions between the two, and he replies that he likes her. Shen asks if he prefers delicate girls or thinks her personality is too dominant. The protagonist responds that it's not that he dislikes her personality, but thinks that Shenyang is much calmer than the president, giving her an admirable princess attitude. Our boy tells her that many people, even loving someone, feel tired because of that love, so he tries to be merciless. Shenyang asks what he means, and he explains that being merciless is actively talking about all the problems whenever they happen so that the person can fix them. She then asks if he wants to have many conflicts to fix things. The protagonist asks for calm and says he doesn't want it to be sudden. Shen says that when she saw him on the train, she felt he was her type. She was going to wait a little longer, but he is getting more and more surrounded by amazing girls, so she can't hesitate anymore. Shenyang responds that they can try to improve together without knowing if it will work out or not, and then get married, have kids, buy a house, move to another city, and live together, saying it's simple. The protagonist asks what if things go wrong or if they are not compatible. She responds that it would be just a small mistake, and that loving the wrong person is still love. But if you never love, you will never know who the right person is. The protagonist thinks this is the Shenyang who captivated him, intelligent, brave, and sincere, and who wouldn't like someone like that. He would like to grow old with her, but he apologizes because he needs to think about it. Nervous, he thinks that deep down he is not a very good person. In 30 years of life, he has seen many tragedies and has many ambitions in his heart. He tells her that to be honest, she is the goddess of his heart, but he is not ready yet. She, with closed pupils, thinks she has been rejected. The president sends several messages to the protagonist, wanting to know if he found out and asking him to stop pretending. The protagonist says he found out and he looked at her package and the little letter that came with it gave everything away. She goes crazy, thinking she should have torn it up completely. He sends a message saying his friend left and that he is planning to buy some things, asking if she wants to go with him. They're getting ready to go to Pangy's house and the president comments that they will only bring some fruits. The protagonist responds that they are poor students, asking what else she wants to bring, saying to just get the fruits and be done with it. The president says she thinks that's enough and asks why he is staring at her. He replies that he's waiting for her to pay. She retorts that he chose the fruits and should make her pay while turning away. Tintin complains that the protagonist bullied her today, even making her embarrassed, and asks why she has to pay. She says she doesn't mind sometimes paying for his meal, but this time you will have to pay. The protagonist reluctantly agrees. The president looks into the protagonist's wallet and sees that he has quite a bit of money, asking why he keeps asking the girls to pay every day. He explains that this money is to survive until winter, and if it runs out, he's screwed, mentioning that with how much her novel is being viewed, she must be making good money. The protagonist receives some chewing gum to keep his breath fresh, but warns that it might make his mouth sticky. However, they have some peculiar benefits like bioelectricity, happiness, and sweetness. Tintin tries to play it down and says she didn't write the book, just helped a bit, mentioning that it's a different story not only about abusive relationships but also combining some Korean dramas. She admits that when she read it, she paid attention to the most exciting parts, feeling embarrassed and not knowing what to say. To break the ice, she asks what type of girl our boy likes. He replies that he declared his feelings to her friend today and likes that type of girl. The president, incredulous, says no one believes that. The protagonist asks why she's asking if she won't believe it. The president asks what he thinks of Panji. Hanley responds that he thinks she's very good, and Tintin questions if he likes her. He confirms, saying she has the classic beauty of a rich girl, and who wouldn't like a girl like that, questioning the reason for the question. She suggests that he likes Panji just because she's pretty and rich. Tintin wants the protagonist to give indirect compliments to her, but questioning if he imagines she likes women, says she actually likes men. The protagonist says if she thinks all those jokes with Fifi were just to get ideas for the book, what does she think about renting a room tomorrow to broaden their horizons a little? The president, embarrassed, says if he wants to practice, she will be the queen and he will be the servant. Our boy says he will be the dominator. She, surprised, asks if he is belittling her. Tintin says he may be good at fighting, but this is different, requiring psychological skills. The protagonist comments that she is fierce, and she wonders what she is doing. The driver announces that they have arrived, and Han Lee, remembering that he paid for the fruits, says now it's her turn to pay for the taxi. As they get out of the car, she sees Panji in her elite outfit at the billionaire house. Tintin comments that she has only seen a house like this in movies, finding it amazing. Panji responds that it's not that amazing, and asks the protagonist to let her know if anything is missing because she doesn't want to leave anyone unhappy. They enter the house and put on slippers. Han Lee, seeing the piano, comments that he would like to hear Panji play a serenade. She replies that he's dreaming and doesn't deserve that. At that moment, Panji's mother appears, scolding her daughter for talking like that to her friends. The mother greets the protagonist, and the president hides behind Panji. Seeing Tintin, the mother asks if she is who she thinks, saying that her daughter talks a lot about her and that they seem inseparable. The protagonist interrupts, introduces himself, and says he brought fruits, asking where the kitchen is. The woman accepts the gift this time but warns not to bring more or she will have to return the favor. With a peculiar smile, she comments that Han Lee is generous and sensitive, which is very good. In the kitchen, they arrange the fruits while chatting. The protagonist talks about his city, and the mother notices that he is well-mannered and has etiquette, even though he's not a millionaire. However, for her it doesn't matter, as her family has enough money to sustain him for several lifetimes. All she wants is for him to set her daughter straight. Her father appears, all happy that the protagonist has arrived, calling him Professor. The father asks the boy to come quickly for some tea. The mother and daughter are embarrassed and wonder why he was called a professor. The mother then calls everyone to dinner, and it seems the crabs are tied up again. Our boy observes, thinking it's the first time he's been to dinner at someone of the opposite sex's house, and that the atmosphere is not very pleasant. Pangi asks the president where her boldness and joy are, noticing that now she's all shy. She says the situation is different, that her father and mother keep staring and she doesn't know why. The father suggests the kids eat and talk about something else. While talking, the father says that's the prisoner his daughter likes the most and asks her to eat it. Pangi puts it on the president's plate and tells her to eat it, saying it's delicious. The father gets irritated and says the crab is for his daughter, not the president. Hidden pours grape juice into a glass and asks the protagonist if he wants a drink, accepts. The mother tells her daughter that if she wants to stop drinking Coke and enjoy some wine with her mother, now is the time. Pangi is angry, thinking the Coke was for the guests and not for her. The president asks Pangi if she likes Coke and suggests they enjoy it while the others are drinking. Hanley comments that he's never seen the president drink and wonders if her tolerance is good, worried that she might get drunk on wine as he would have to carry her back. Tintin, already tipsy, tells Pangi to drink too, as she's already drunk. The protagonist, looking at the two, thinks it seems they finished a bottle, but it was just a glass. The president's mother is also getting a bit drunk. Seeing the two hugging, she says it's great to see them like this, as she also had a best friend, but they stopped talking because of a guy and lost contact. The president bangs on the table, saying it's hard to find a good man as many men are trash and hit on all women. Pangi agrees, saying these men have no humanity. The two start hinting at the protagonist. The president says he's a bastard who happily uses her money but grimaces when it's time to use his own. Pangi calls the protagonist a fool, saying he uses her utensils without permission, getting angrier as she speaks. Tintin suggests it's best not to make her angrier, as when the time comes, she will pull out a whip and some candles. And Panji agrees, saying not to forget the dog collar too. The president's mother is incredulous, not understanding their conversations. The father seems calmer, realizing that maybe they're so angry because both were hurt in love. However, he wants to know when his daughter was hurt in love. He turns to Hanley and says not to give up, as people's perceptions can change. Inviting him to drink more, he says he needs to ask the professor some questions. The protagonist asks him not to call him professor, saying he's not that good. The father responds that it's been a long time since he's seen someone as good as the protagonist. The protagonist asks the father to drink less as he's already getting crazy. The father then cries in Hanley's arms, saying it would be great if he could be his son-in-law. He thinks this is what they call being direct when drunk, as the father isn't even trying to hide it. The father asks the protagonist what's wrong with his daughter, if she's not good enough for him. He replies that he was going to say she's incredible, but the father interrupts, saying that as long as he's interested in his daughter, nothing else matters because he will give all the support possible. The protagonist says the girl he likes is the president and already takes her back home. Back home, the president talks a lot of nonsense and asks for another bottle of wine. She pushes the protagonist, calling him a dog, and he says she's crazy and to stop running because she might fall, saying for him not to worry if she can still jump and run. Hugging a post, she ends up falling into the boy's lap. He realizes it's night and thinks they will have to rent a room because it's too late to go back to the dormitory. At Panji's house, her parents put her to sleep. The father asks if she's completely out, and the mother confirms. She asks to talk to her husband with a serious expression. The father asks why she has that look. Her mother wants to know about the protagonist's business with the president and if her father knew anything beforehand. The father says he just found out as well. The mother bangs on the table and asks about the talk of the protagonist having multiple partners, questioning if the father now likes polygamy. The father says he loves the mother and no one else. She says they will continue with the plan and asks if he handed over the account to the protagonist. Mr. Pan confirms and says that side is resolved since he also gave him a check for $500,000. He explains that he knows it's hard to pursue a girl like her without money, so he gave him some help. The mother considers this idiotic and asks why he gave that extra money when they could have made a revenue account and kept part of the commission. If they come together because of the money, they will only fight over money in the future. The father asks her to calm down, explaining that the $500,000 was part of the boy's salary, and considering their daughter's history, he doubted she would fight over money. He added that they didn't usually argue about it at home and that he was using the money as leverage to help both of them. The mother found it interesting, remembering that before, the father didn't want to approve of Xiao Sai. The father explained that he thought Xiao Sai was very strange, a crazy kid, incapable of taking care of their daughter. Meanwhile, at the hotel, the protagonist analyzed the check he had received. He reflected that with that money, he would have 30% of the profits, while the rest would go to the other investor. And if he managed to recover the lost amount from the investment, he could keep 50% of the profits from then on. Looking at the check, he thought that being rich must be nice, remembering that Mr. Pan had $10 million to invest. At that moment, the president woke up, confused about where she was and if she was dreaming. Noticing the protagonist nearby, she complained and approached him. He said that the dormitories had already closed, so they had to rest there. Without realizing, she's trying to find the so-called balance. Our boy tried to calm her down, asking her not to get too close. She got mad, accusing him of being a hypocrite, thinking she was in her dreams, while calling him a fake knight and that she hated him. Even so, she admitted knowing that he wasn't a good person. Approaching to kiss him, having drunk so much wine, she then vomited on the protagonist. He promised never to let her drink that much again, and they both went to sleep. When she woke up, Tintin wondered what had happened, recalling that she drank and had a strange dream with our boy at the hotel. Although thinking it was just a dream, she noticed a red stain on the couch, making her nervous. She supposedly thought that her first time had happened the previous night in that place. Meanwhile, the protagonist was at the bank making a deposit when he received an urgent call from the president. She began to suspect that the online guy was the protagonist, but after he sent the number to her, she noticed the numbers didn't match, so she called him. However, our boy had a voice-altering chip, which relieved her when she answered the call and realized the voices weren't the same. Han Li, noticing her relief, joked with her, asking if she was like that because of his voice. The president denied it, explaining that she needed to talk about something. When the protagonist asked what had happened to her boyfriend, she explained that she was confused, remembering that they had drunk wine the night before and then woke up in the hotel with a red stain on the couch. Spitting out all the noodles, he laughed at the situation. However, he asked about her battery percentage, and seeing that it was low, he asked her to save it and look for a written note. Tintin agreed and hummed up, and minutes later, she found a note where our boy complained about her vomiting on him, thus losing the incredible opportunity of sleeping in the bed with her. She was surprised to learn it was just wine. Back at the school dorm, Yunyun asked if the president had slept out the night before. She explained that she had slept alone outside, but Yunyun found it strange, remembering that she had left with the protagonist to go to Pangy's house. Meanwhile, the protagonist was at the bank making a deposit when he received a message from Yunyun, questioning if he had declared his feelings for a girl and taken Tintin to a motel the night before. The protagonist tried to deny it, but suspected that the president had said something foolish. She then sent him a message complaining that he hadn't charged his phone yet. He explained that he had only charged it to 50% to save money, and she was confused, asking why he needed money. Hanley said it was to do some shopping, but she questioned what he needed to buy. He explained that he needed to buy some tools he had read about in a work, but she called him a pervert. He tried to explain, but the message was blocked by the girl. Our boy says it's alright and asks to see if she leaves a like on this video. Do you remember that last chapter ended when our dear Hanlai had his phone blocked by Ting Ting? Out of revenge, he did the same thing, blocked her and even deleted her contact. Since she wanted to play this game, he was going to do the same. He walked away thinking that everyone wants power. Yun Yun stole his money, and Fei Fei always ignored him. However, for some reason, he was much angrier at Ting Ting. Yun Yun tried to deceive him by pretending to be a good person, while Fei Fei just ignored him and didn't do anything excessive. But Ting Ting saw that he was weak and essentially bullied him. Even after the incident, she showed no remorse. It was as if she thought he was trash that deserved to suffer like that. At least Yun Yun, in a way, saw some value in him. But for Chuking, he was nothing but a negative presence. He understood that she didn't have Panji's family background or Yanfei's intelligence. Matt eagerly put her down, calling her dumb and poor. That's why she believes she can only get ahead in life by stepping on others. Walking into the store, he concluded his thought, thinking that people who like to step on others must learn that one day they'll also be stepped on. He walked in and told the clerk he wanted to learn about the course. Apparently, the boy was going to take some fitness classes to bulk up for real this time. The trading he had been doing with the system didn't seem to be enough. His base attributes were very different from the system's secondary ones. He enrolled and told himself he needed a challenging workout. Now that he was getting closer to Panji, he had to be as attractive as possible to catch the rich girl's attention. Well, everyone uses the tools they have to win in life, right? If he had the opportunity, he would make the most of it. The scene then shifts to the teacher's office. The chubby guy told him all the preparations for the live competition had been made. They were talking about that trading and finance competition that was coming up. The teacher mentioned the bonus he would receive and said he could ask for help if needed, and Hanlai thanked him. Leaving the room, he mentioned that guy gave him 5,000 while the school only provided 2,000. Back in his dorm room, his friends found out he had gotten some money and asked if he was going to treat everyone to a meal. I thought Hanlai would refuse, but apparently today was the night of generosity. Yun Yun said she was excited to eat him out of house and home, and Fei Fei joked she needed a new pair of earrings. That's when he remembered he still hadn't unblocked Ting Ting. As soon as he removed her from the blacklist, she messaged him saying he was lucky to unblock her before getting beaten up. She asked what was up with him inviting Yun Yun, and he replied that she was also invited. But Ting Ting was angry and didn't want to hang out with all those people. So she responded that she wasn't interested and even sent him a middle finger emoji. Hanlai commented that she was very mad and that his friends loved reading the web novel, and there was one with a certain someone he was dying to recommend. Instantly, she changed her mind and said she would come, even putting on her best outfit. At that moment, Yun Yun showed up in the room and asked if Ting Ting was going too, to which she replied yes. That friend with the sunglasses then asked Hanlai if he could invite his sister, Yanfei. But he was worried his sister might end up dating Hanlai because of it. Right then, the protagonist said maybe and asked for the sister's contact, shocking the guy. The scene then shifts to the city. Honestly, these girls, all dressed up, seemed much more restrained than at school. Fei Fei was in a sweatshirt and a long skirt. Man, I'd never seen her look so decent. They apologized for being late and Hanlai said it was fine. He complimented Ting Ting's stockings, saying they made her legs look really long. I think it's some sort of Chinese-style compliment, because she blushed looking all shy. She complimented the rest of the group and started introducing the dorm friends. The one with the short hair was Xiaodong Bai. I think it's the first time I've heard his name. While climbing the stairs, the guy with sunglasses wondered if Hanlai might already have something going on with his sister. He decided to take a picture saying he had to warn her about it. Man, what a backstabber friend out of nowhere. But then again, it's his sister, right? That's tough. The group then gathered around the table. These Chinese folks love those round tables, huh? Ever noticed how this happens in every story once in a while? As soon as they picked up the menu, they started wanting ribs and all the most expensive stuff. Then Yun said he'd order everything he wanted, and Hanlai said it was fine as long as it stayed under 5,000. Suddenly, Ting Ting told him that some Luyo guy already knew about the dinner. He asked what the problem was, and she said other classmates might think he was giving them special treatment. He replied that he didn't care much and said he wasn't worried about it. He had already said he was a selfish person who preferred being alone. That's why it was impossible for him to be himself and maintain a good relationship with everyone. The only reason he invited the people at that table was because they were close to him. And of course, there was another reason. Sweating nervously, she asked what that reason was. And then he reveals that he's about to leave this university. Man, I didn't even know when this happened. Ting Ting looks all confused, staring at him, unsure where the boy is going. She thinks to herself that this bastard is always mistreating her. Now that he's leaving, she should feel happy, but instead, she's mad. She then asks if he's going to study in another country. He explains that he's not. He's just taking the transfer exam to the main campus of this university. Ting Ting asks if he's doing this because of Yanfei or her friend. Meanwhile, Han Lai notices that the girl is nearly gripping her shorts, looking so sad. She comments that both girls seem nice and he must have developed feelings for one of them. Han Lai tells her to stop doubting him because of course he developed feelings for both. She yells at him to stop joking and making things up. He then reveals he's not joking. She can believe or not, but the truth is that he neither liked nor disliked anyone. She interprets this as him being just a playboy wanting all the girls. But suddenly, her expression changes as if she realizes something. Apparently, she remembers that Fudan University doesn't accept mid-year transfers. She gets angry and asks if he's playing tricks while the girls at the table are watching him. It seems like the boy was lying the whole time. "Oh boy, you think I have all the time in the world for your jokes and tricks, kid. Get on with the story already. Even I feel like punching this kid right now." At this point, Yu tells Ting Ting to calm down because girls should be gentle and understanding. Fei Fei, however, says it's Han Lai's fault and tells him to annoy Yu since she's pitying Ting Ting. The two glare at each other for a second and then turn away angrily. Han Lai then tells Ting Ting to listen to Ming and be a bit more gentle. Suddenly, Chevedong stands up, calling all the sisters-in-law and asking who wants some tea. Everyone at the table goes silent. The girls get a little embarrassed, saying he can't be that direct. He says he understands, asks for the flavors, and they respond. Then he asks Ting Ting what the eldest sister-in-law would prefer. She gets angry, and he says he'll just grab a strawberry tea then. Meanwhile, the guy with sunglasses is wondering if he'll really end up alone in all of this. At this point, Ting Ting, seeing how calm Han Lai is, decides to call Panji to annoy him a bit. He tells her not to invite anyone else because after this, he has to go to the gym, trade some stocks, and won't have time. She responds that she'll let it go this time, but he better stop annoying her first. He chuckles and then says that everyone there has always looked out for him. He had wanted to host a dinner like this for a long time to bring everyone together, but never had the chance. He raises his glass, saying that today he received his first bonus ever, which isn't much but is meaningful. Their presence shows that he values the quality of his friends, not the quantity. He doesn't care about criticism from others unless it comes from his friends, and he asks them to go easy on him. Everyone starts celebrating, and his friend says it's cool. Meanwhile, Ting Ting wonders why this bastard is suddenly being so nice. Out of the blue, he stands up and tells the class monitor not to be so angry. He takes her hand and tells her to be more loving because she'll love everything that's served. She's a little confused, not knowing why he suddenly grabbed her hand like that. Then she receives a call from Pangi. As soon as she answers, Panji asks why she called and Ting Ting says it was by accident. Panji then questions what she's doing and she responds that she's in her room reading. However, Xiaodong is standing right in front of her. He looks a little scared and she tells him to repeat who's at this so-called dinner. The next scene shows him returning to the room with a woman making soup. Lindy excitedly goes to celebrate her arrival, but that's when his expression changes. Someone with red painted nails asks what kind of celebration this is and why everyone looks so shocked. Obviously, it's Panji wanting to know if her presence there isn't welcome. Everyone is startled and Kin Kin asks what she's doing there. Panji just responds with that excuse about reading in her room. Kin Kin gets a little embarrassed, saying there's an explanation. Chevedong brings the bags and tries to explain. He says that when he went to get the tea, he ran into Pangi and ended up mentioning that they were drinking. She asked why a bunch of guys wanted strawberry tea and he accidentally let it slip that the girls were there. Han Lai puts a hand on his shoulder and says it's inevitable for someone with an intelligence deficit like his. The poor guy starts crying, saying that kind of consolation just made him feel worse. Then Han Lai walks over to Pangi and tells her to sit down. He explains that his plan was to invite her to a solo dinner, but since she arrived, it's the perfect time. He tells everyone to start ordering because they're all friends there. Some time passes and Xiaodong is eating, saying the food is delicious. He asks for 2 more bottles of beer and tells Han Lai to join them. But suddenly the boy stands up, saying he has to leave because he has a workout at the gym tonight. He was about to pay the bill when Panji suddenly said she would leave with him because there was something she needed to discuss. Seeing this, Ting Ting looked confused about why Panji got up to follow this damn dog. She started to suspect something strange was going on. Outside on the street, Han Lai asked what Panji wanted to talk about. She wanted to know what he had discussed with her father. Han Lai explained that he had only met her father a few times, so they never had any serious conversations. He waved goodbye, saying that if that was her only question, he was leaving. But suddenly, she grabbed his arm and told him to stay put. She says she already knew her father thought she was in some kind of relationship with Ting Ting. She asked if it was true that their parents had asked him to try to form a connection with her. He denied it, all the while wondering how this damn girl had figured something like that out. He said her father's misunderstanding involved only father and daughter and had nothing to do with him. She complained, telling him to stop making things up and coming up with false arguments. Since the crab dinner and that misunderstanding, her father had been unusually kind to him, even though he was always strict with boys. Not to mention that the day he visited her house, things had been strange too. Han Lai asked what any of that had to do with him. If her father wanted to use him to sabotage her relationship with Ting Ting, in the end he was just being used. She was impressed by his audacity to respond like that. She then revealed that earlier that morning she had asked her mother a few things. She found out that her father had handed over some stock accounts for him to manage. He admitted it and asked why she was bringing it up. Now though, Han-lai was feeling insecure. He needed that money to continue advancing. The problem was that he didn't yet have control over Panji, and everything was tied to her. Unfortunately, she laid all her cards on the table, saying she now understood his situation. He had become a dog, essentially hired by her family. He was startled to see that she had figured everything out. She gave a sly smile and asked why he seemed so upset. She said if he truly didn't see a problem with this, he could simply explain the misunderstanding to her parents. Han-lai said the result of that would be returning the stock account to her father, which wouldn't affect him much. In the end, it was just a business relationship. If the boss didn't want him anymore, he wouldn't want to work there either. But the truth was, he was bluffing because he had already spent 150,000 out of the 500,000 and couldn't return it. Still, he knew that if she wanted to end everything, she would have spoken to her father, so he just needed to stay calm. He realized she wanted something and asked what it was. She gave him a mischievous look and asked if he truly wasn't interested in any of this. She wanted to know if he wasn't interested in her or in the opportunity her father had given him. Even though he was young and smart, he should know that opportunities didn't come often. Even if he was a prodigy, he should understand how long it would take to manage an account with over 3 million. He unwrapped a sweet and told her to get to the point. He popped it into his mouth and asked what she wanted in the end. She smirked and said it was obvious. She stepped closer and said she wanted him to belong to her. If she told him to end things with Ting Ting, he couldn't hesitate. If she called him to go out, he would have to drop everything and come immediately. If he refused, she would confront her family and his reputation would be completely ruined. She added that her father had been tricked once and despised people who acted deceitfully. At that moment, he realized she was threatening him even more than he had anticipated. She stepped closer and said he was quite useful and could help solve some problems she had. What she was offering was really just another opportunity for him. The poor guy was sweating nervously, unsure how to respond. It seemed she already knew about all the money involved. However, in the end, he hadn't lied to her father, so he wasn't too afraid. She turned around and said she would try this fake relationship for a while. But if he tried hard enough, it wasn't impossible for him to become her real boyfriend. Han-lai laughed, saying that after all her plans, she just wanted to date him. He smiled, thinking that now he had regained control of the situation. He then told her it would be better if she was honest with her father right away. There was already someone else he liked and her father knew about it. She laughed and didn't seem to believe him. She asked if it was one of the 3 girls or his childhood friend. Touching his chest, she said she already understood how he worked, and in this negotiation, everyone got what they wanted. She didn't care much about the money he was receiving and could even introduce him to some new clients. Turning to leave, she said he should calculate that with the 100,000 he had, he would have to win 100 times to make 10 million. Meanwhile, if he started earning with 10 million, he would need far less risk and fewer negotiations to achieve that. Han-lai stood there, realizing her logic was undeniable. As she walked away, he told her she should have made that offer sooner. He extended his hand and thought to himself that her financial power truly exceeded his by far. He decides to let her think she's winning for now and asks how much money she really has saved up and could use for investments. She pauses for a moment, starts doing some calculations, and wonders if he has actually given in. She mentions some cars, shares in her company, credit cards, and other assets. If she combined everything, she'd have at least 20 million ready to spend. At this, Han-lai is shocked. She really had way more money than he imagined. She wasn't just any Harris. Her father was truly one of the big players in the capital. He knew he had to seize the opportunity, but reminded himself this was a game and she wasn't a good person. So he says that from now on, he accepts her as his girlfriend. Confused, she asks what kind of nonsense that is. She was giving him an opportunity to try not to act so entitled. He crosses his arms and wonders why she's making everything so complicated. He thinks that he didn't even want to play this game anymore, but since she was insisting, he had no choice. Finally, she agrees and says that tomorrow she'll open an account and put in 1 million. He could manage it, and they'd split the profits. She looks a little annoyed, thinking how similar they are when it comes to seizing opportunities. But Han-lai questions why only 1 million. He's not about to become someone's dog for so little. She turns away, saying she won't go beyond that, and advises him not to push his luck because she's not in the mood. Suddenly, he grabs her by the shoulder and waist. He leans in close and asks if that's what she's been avoiding. Just as she's about to ask what he's doing, the boy kisses her, out of nowhere. When it comes to money, he takes bold steps. Obviously, they're in the middle of the city and everyone sees it. He then asks her what she thought. Was she satisfied with his skills? But she's left speechless, completely off balance and unsure what just happened. A moment later, he's already leaving in a car, saying that now that their relationship has begun, he expects good cooperation. Slowly, he waves goodbye, calling her a beginner. The poor girl screams at the sky, calling him a dog. She realizes that after a public kiss like that, she has no choice but to go along with him. Blushing, she starts reflecting on how her first kiss is gone and wondering why he was so aggressive, considering how many boys she'd met before. At the same time, she's puzzled about why she doesn't dislike it. Touching her face, she wonders if maybe she actually likes him. Meanwhile, in the car, Han-lai is amazed by the effects of the candy he ate earlier. That candy seemed more like a drug, honestly. It made him calm, happy, and relaxed, lasting for 2 hours. peculiar. He admits that it works so well he almost considered staying longer with Panji, but he leans back and remembers how manipulative that girl is. He never imagined he'd lose this game and have to resort to this kind of move, especially since he had been saving his first kiss for Ting Ting. Man, this revenge really goes deep. Back with Panji, she's a little upset that she didn't gather much information and ended up getting caught in this game. Later, she returns to the meeting. Ting Ting calls her, saying the food is getting cold and asks if that weirdo finally left. But she notices something odd and asks if there's something wrong with Panji's lips. Panji looks embarrassed and Ting Ting says her lipstick seems off. Anyone would think that her expensive lipstick wouldn't smudge from just a 2-second kiss. Panji, feeling awkward, tries to play it off, saying maybe it's from chewing gum. But Ting Ting senses something fishy again. She leans closer and says Panji only uses extremely expensive lip products, so it's hard to imagine it smudging so easily. Panji makes up another excuse, saying it was actually gloss. But Ting Ting, being the relentless detective she is, moves closer and notices that Panji's lips look too cracked for someone wearing gloss. The poor girl is completely exposed, yet she keeps trying to come up with excuses. But Ting Ting already suspects she fell for that Dan dog's charm. Now Ting Ting wants to know who initiated it. She's frustrated, feeling like she hasn't even taken her first step, while Panji is already acting like this. Suddenly, she grabs Panji's chin, startling her, and leans in. The poor girl seems paralyzed by the forced closeness. But Ting Ting only gets closer to sniff and doesn't smell any gum. She starts thinking that Panji is more cunning than she imagined and must have been the one to force the kiss. Suddenly, chopsticks fall to the ground and everyone looks shocked. Panji screams that she's leaving and runs out. Outside, she runs away, upset. It seems Ting Ting did manage a light kiss, but unlike the earlier kiss with Hanlai, Panji hated this one. Now she's wondering if she really fell for that Dan dog. Meanwhile, Xiaodong looks like a fool, lamenting that he missed the chance to take an amazing photo. Ting Ting just said that they were all a bunch of idiots for never having seen two girls kiss before. After that, the gathering ended and everyone said their goodbyes. On the way back, the protagonist's friends couldn't stop talking about the kiss. Xiaodong even mentioned that Su Xing seemed very skilled and confident. Maybe she really liked women. The problem was that, while they were discussing this, someone nearby overheard their conversation. It was one of Panji's father's friends and he decided to send him a message to discuss it. Meanwhile, Hanlai was in the middle of his workout at the gym when the message arrived. It was from Yanfei, his old friend, congratulating him for hanging out with 3 girls at once. Hanlai quickly realized it was his sunglasses-wearing friend who had spread the news to her. Apparently, the guy wanted to surround him with women to distract him from his sister. Yanfei was showing the messages to Xiang, laughing and saying this was so typical Hanlai. She then asked if he was still dining with those beautiful girls, and he replied that he had already left for the gym. They chatted about his training and why he was working out. Hanlai responded that he needed to get stronger to protect her after what happened back then. She blushed, realizing he still cared about that incident. He sent her a photo of himself, saying, "This is the result of hard work." Yanfei seemed impressed, while her friend had already noticed that Yanfei seemed to have feelings for him. But that was expected since he always drew attention. Then Hanlai messaged them, saying that now that he had handled his classmates, he wanted to invite them to dinner as well. But Xiang suggested it would be better if it were just Yanfei and Hanlai. Yanfei agreed and said she'd consider it, but she noticed that Xiang looked a bit sad at the suggestion. She quickly realized that her friend also liked Hanlai. Understanding this, she replied that she was too busy at the moment and they could plan for another day. Hanlai thought to himself that if she was going to reject him, she shouldn't have agreed in the first place. The boy took it to heart. Then he received a message from Yun, the gossip queen, who obviously had all the details about what happened. Of course, she brought up the kiss. She mentioned that knowing about the kiss and the dynamic between those two, Hanlai might forget about them, giving her a chance now. Meanwhile, Hanlai was doing some peculiar stretches at the gym. Those stretches didn't seem to be helping build muscle though. He was still annoyed about missing such an exciting scene. He told his coach that he had something to take care of and left. Rushing to the bathroom, he messaged Ting Ting, using his cucumber account of course. Ting Ting told him everything about the kiss, the gum, and strangely enough admitted that she liked the situation. Even Hanlai started wondering if the girl was now playing for the other team. He asked her directly if her sexuality had changed for good. She replied that it hadn't, but she wanted to provoke someone as a way to relax. Hanlai was confused about why she would do something like that to relax. He started theorizing that maybe she enjoyed acting that way to get inspiration for her novel or something similar. That would make some sense. The problem was that all of this was happening due to several coincidences. He regretted letting them find out about those things in the box that day. That had made Fei Fi curious, which ultimately led to the mess with Pangi. That situation had, in turn, triggered everything with Pangi's parents. All of it was a kind of butterfly effect stemming from different decisions in his past life. He then tells Ting Ting that most of her problems happen because she has too much yang energy. Like me, she's confused about what he means by that. He explains that her temperament is overly aggressive. It's probably something related to her menstrual cycle. He confidently states that she must be going through that phase and likely has headaches and other symptoms. Apparently, the boy's a genius and already knew this from somewhere because he got everything right. She says she's not in the mood to take medication, and he suggests the solution is spending more time with the person she's angry at to calm down. Though I find it odd considering all her problems started because of him. He sends her a long text explaining that deep down she wants to be won over. After reading his lengthy arguments, she concludes that it kind of makes sense. She rushes off telling her friends she forgot something, leaving them suspicious about her behavior. At the Raccoon Starbucks, she messages Han-Lai asking if he's free tonight. He immediately wants to know which hotel they're going to. She gets flustered, as she only wanted to have an honest conversation with him. But she replies that if they're going to a hotel, he should be the one preparing it, and asks if he's a real man. He replies, saying fine, he'll prepare, and just asks when she'll arrive. She calls him delusional and says she'll leave it to someone else. Han-Lai responds that's fine, he'll just invite someone else. This makes her curious about who he's planning to invite. She lowers her phone, assuming it must be Yun, the only one likely to follow his lead. But then she hears something nearby. Panji is rushing by. She starts wondering if it could be her. She privately calls Han-Lai asking where he is, and he says he's at the hotel, getting everything ready for someone. Unable to disguise her suspicion, she demands to know if he invited Panji. But Han-Lai seems genuinely confused, asking why she's suddenly bringing up Panji. He realizes Ting must have seen Panji pass by and concludes the girl is heading out at night. Before he can ask more, the call ends. Meanwhile, as Panji is walking, someone places a hand on her shoulder. It's Ting greeting her mischievously. She comments on how late it is and asks where Panji is going. Panji is about to question why Ting is there, but Ting grabs her arm, asking what the problem is. It's so late and dark. Where could Princess possibly be heading? Feeling awkward, Panji says her mother wasn't feeling well, so she's heading back home. Ting expresses concern and insists on accompanying her to check on her mother. But Panji says it's unnecessary since she's spending the night at home and bids her goodbye. Ting insists it's dangerous, but Panji explains that a car is coming to pick her up. Ting grabs her arm again and says that if there's a car, then there's no problem. They can just return to school together tomorrow. Eventually, Panji reluctantly agrees, saying, fine then. Sometime later, they finally arrive at Panji's house. Ting is confused, not expecting the girl to actually be going home. Panji's mother appears and notices Ting. Ting greets her and explains that she heard she wasn't feeling well, so she accompanied Panji home. Her mother walks to the counter, assuring her not to worry and that she's fine. In reality, though, she looks unwell. She had heard about the kiss between Ting and Panji, and now, to make matters worse, they've arrived together. Thinking about the scene nearly makes her faint, and she excuses herself, saying she's heading back to her room to rest. This leaves the two girls standing there, unsure of what just happened. Panji looks to the side and blames Ting for everything. She sits on the sofa, demanding to know why Ting followed her at night. Was she in love or just playing the knight in shining armor? Ting awkwardly responds that of course, Panji is beautiful and rich, so it's obvious she fell in love. But Panji knows she's being sarcastic and warns her to be careful with her words, saying Ting will have to deal with what happened at dinner tonight. Ting laughs and shoves Panji onto the sofa, saying that in the end, it was Panji who stole Han-Lai first. Panji pushes her off, demanding to know what Ting's relationship with Han-Lai is. Was she the one stalking him, trying to dominate him, and acting crazy? Panji considers coming up with an excuse, but decides that since they kissed and she didn't resist, she might as well admit she wants that dog. Ting, taken aback, doesn't know how to respond to such a direct confession. Suddenly, Ting sits up and admits that honestly, even though she has other friends, she feels the closest connection with Panji. She knows they won't be together forever, but wants their friendship to last longer. Embarrassed, Panji replies that just because of Han-Lai, it doesn't mean they can't still be friends. After all, he's just a boy. But Ting should know that she won't let her have a chance with him, no matter what. Ting laughs, saying they seem to be progressing quickly, considering he was preparing a hotel room for them. Confused, Panji asks what she's talking about. Suspicious, Ting asks for Panji's phone. She assumes Panji is lying. When she sees Han-Lai's messages, she realizes Panji is telling the truth. She stares at Panji, who seems oblivious, saying she was just an innocent bystander dragged into all of this. Suddenly, Ting gets up and tries to leave, waving goodbye. But Panji tackles her, pinning her to the floor, saying it's too dangerous for her to go out alone at night. Hearing the commotion, Panji's mother comes out. Panji declares that she won't let Ting escape because they'll be spending the night together. The mother, observing the scene, thinks at least her daughter seems to be taking charge in their relationship. Ting notices her and apologizes for disturbing her rest, promising to bring a gift next time. The mother is confused that Ting doesn't even want a glass of milk and tells her daughter she seems to be maturing. Meanwhile, walking through the city, Han-Lai gets a message from Ting, asking for the name of the hotel he's in so she can check it out. He knows she's with Panji, so she must be bluffing. But then she sends him a photo of her middle finger. telling him to send the address quickly. A scene shifts to the Marriott Hotel, where Han Lai asks for a good room. The receptionist explains the hotel's features, but he's too distracted, scanning the lobby to see if Ting Ting will show up. He hurriedly asks to go upstairs and selects the presidential suite, the only room that allows direct access to the floor without lingering downstairs. Once in the room, he hands over his card and documents to finalize the booking. The card passes, and he spends 38,000 yuan from Pangyi's father's money. But thanks to this, he finally receives a reward from the system for spending money. He waves goodbye to the receptionist, who wishes him a good night. Inside the room, he opens the system and sees a white card, a stay card that allows him to pay only 20% of any hotel's costs, with the system covering the other 80%. He realizes this is the perfect way to stay in luxurious hotels while maximizing value. The only downside is that spending less earns fewer experience points. At that moment, he receives a message from Ting Ting saying she's arrived and demanding the room number. She seems hesitant, almost regretting coming and contemplating leaving. But then she sees a message from Han Lai that shocks her. He questions how she had the courage to show up and tells her to leave. Thinking he didn't believe she actually come, Ting Ting decides to stay. She declares she's not inconvenienced and demands the room number. He agrees and says he'll send someone to the lobby to fetch her. But in reality, this is just a mind game. He knows that acting reluctant will make her more determined to come up. This boy is playing advanced level chess. He opens the room door, inviting her in. Ting Ting, blushing and confused, asks what kind of room this is. He nonchalantly says it's the presidential suite, leaving her shocked. Why did this dog spend so much money just for her? She scolds him, but he brushes it off and tells her to come in. Once inside, she realizes she needs to take control of the situation. She's gone too far and can't let him dominate her now. She pokes his chest, accusing him of playing games with her and Pangyi, but he just laughs, making her even angrier. He gently takes her hand, kisses her forehead, and says she doesn't seem to like the room he rented. Leaning in, he whispers in her ear, suggesting they first explore everything the suite has to offer. She notices the maid showing them around the room. The woman addresses him as Mr. Han, which leaves Ting Ting a bit confused. Both of them are impressed when the maid shows them the massive bathtub, though honestly, it didn't look that big to me. The protagonist comments on whether the B6 level qualifies as 5-star accommodations, but he's quite picky. He mentions that the furniture in the secondary bedroom seem outdated. Meanwhile, Ting Ting is amazed by the imported brands throughout the suite. When she sprays a bit of the perfume provided, he leans in to sniff her neck. The maid then announces that she's leaving and wishes them to enjoy themselves in the room. As the door closes, Ting Ting looks puzzled by the maid's choice of words. He teases her, saying that apparently her mind isn't as pure as it seems. Flustered, she declares she'll stay in the secondary bedroom. He retorts that if that's the case, he'll have to charge her 10,000 yuan for the night. Angry, she grabs his arm, pulls him into the main room, opens a bottle of wine, and starts drinking. He's unsure how to respond to this. But as soon as she takes a sip, she notices he's on his phone. When she's about to complain, he shows her a message from Pangyi, asking what he's up to. Ting Ting demands he tell Pangyi he's at the hotel with her. He agrees but asks what he'll get in return for sending that message. His calm demeanor only irritates Ting Ting further. She snatches the phone from his hand and says he should start confessing to her. If he asked her to be his girlfriend and stop messing around with other women, she'd give him whatever he wanted tonight. The offer is tempting and Han Lai is taken aback by her boldness. It seems like both of them are finally showing their true colors tonight. They share their first kiss and Ting Ting notices a sweet, familiar taste. But Han Lai doesn't stop there and pulls her into the moment. The next thing you know, she's handcuffed. Wait, what just happened? She's wondering the same thing. He tells her that in this relationship, he's the one who makes the rules. Blushing furiously, she struggles to understand why she feels so flustered in this situation. Suddenly, clothes are on the floor. He calls her class monitor, apologizes, and tells her she shouldn't have called him a dog. Holding her hands, you can imagine what happened next, right? I never thought it'd take 91 chapters for this, but the boy finally scored a goal. She's left lying on the bed, murmuring that she wouldn't even mind being his second, or even his eighth. He removes the handcuffs and her wrist is slightly marked. She's blushing, thinking about how gentle he was with her. Well, that's her perspective, at least she calls it gentleness. Holding her arm, he comments on how fiery her temperament is. She begs him not to treat her like that anymore, but he knows that if he starts being kind, she'll lose interest in him. He reflects on how her friend Fei Fei always treated her well, yet Ting Ting liked Pangyi more despite the chaos she caused. If he starts giving in to her requests, she'll stop liking him too. Suddenly, she pulls her hand away, pondering if it might be true. If he stops provoking her, her interest might fade as well. He then makes her an offer, saying that if she wants to submit to him, he could try being her master. Wait, what's even happening here? This is getting peculiar. Ting Ting throws a pillow at him, telling him to stop with the weird talk and go get her some food because she's hungry. But he replies that if she has the energy to complain, she has the energy for something else, and jumps on her again. Some time passes, and the hotel staff brings a meal to them. Ting Ting, seemingly resigned, asks who his main girlfriend is. Han Lai, confused, asks her back, who does she prefer, Pangyi or Yanfei? Without hesitation, Ting Ting replies that Yanfei is definitely better because Panji absolutely doesn't deserve any of this. He teases her, asking if she really means that anyone would be better as long as it's not Panji, and she agrees. He then comments that their friendship doesn't seem very genuine. An argument breaks out in the room. I don't know exactly what happened, but now it's the next day. As soon as he returns to the dormitory, his brother drops to his knees apologizing for what happened yesterday. Hanlai responds that he has no idea what they're talking about. But from the other bed, Xiaodong spills the beans, saying it's about the photos he sent to his sister and her friend. Our boy considers picking up a hammer and knocks some sense into him but decides to let it go. His friends then invite him to go out that night because there's going to be a fun game involving money, a somewhat unclear situation. The only problem is that it involves some seniors, and Hanlai warns them to be careful because there seems to be a guy who likes Panji. However, Hanlai is more worried that people will find out he kissed Panji and went to a hotel with Ting Ting all in the same day. The scene shifts to room 204. They are visiting the seniors, who are apparently the ones participating in that strange game I still don't understand. There are two others sitting on the bunk bed. One of them seems annoyed that this guy showed up, while the one in the glasses just observes. One of the guys gets up, places a hand on the protagonist's shoulder, and tells him to make himself at home because they're all brothers here. The senior doesn't seem to like that, and the green-haired guy reveals that it seems this person wanted to be on top in that finance competition, but didn't end up winning. However, the guy with glasses retorts, pointing out that the green-haired one who's mocking him was interested in Pangi but also failed to win her over. Man, everyone in this room seems to have lost something to Hanlai. Better be careful, kid. The red-haired guy congratulates Hanlai, saying that if he really has connections with Pangi, he's a lucky guy. Embarrassed, Hanlai looks away, saying it's all just a joke. He claims he's only close to her because her father asked him to keep an eye on her and ensure nothing bad happens to his daughter. The guys keep observing, and the one smoking says he now understands what's going on. It seems the boy they were suspicious of doesn't have such a deep connection with Pangi after all. But the red-haired guy slams the table, saying that's not how it is. He's seen Hanlai very close to her countless times, so clearly something's going on. The protagonist then comments that this boy's name is Xiaoxi, and tells him that if he doubts it, he should go talk to Pangi's father. At that point, his dorm friends tell the guys to stop pestering the protagonist. However, the smoker didn't know the boy was so close to the entire Pan family. The protagonist reveals that he's only managing the father's investment account and that it's nothing too serious. For some reason, his friends start laughing, saying his skills are impressive, probably just to mock the others. The glasses-wearing guy, annoyed, decides to calm down and says that for the protagonist to have so many skills, he must come from a rich family. The protagonist replies that his family has dealt with finances quite a bit, and that's how he learned. Zhao, his friend, asks if his family worked in a bank or something like that. The truth, of course, is that his mother worked as a supermarket cashier, so in a way he's not really lying, right? At this point, Xiaoxi says it's time to get to the main topic. He pulls out a deck of cards and announces it's time to start the games. Hanlai, however, replies that he's not here to play because he doesn't like gambling. But as the system activates, he gains a new skill, obviously related to card games and gambling. When combined with his psychological skill, the effect would be doubled. He picks up the deck from the table and says he only came to get to know everyone better. Seeing his attitude, his dormmates immediately know he's about to stir up trouble again. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi wonders why he seems so confident. The scene shifts back to Ting Ting, who's feeling nervous, her heart racing. Yun asks why she's wearing a turtleneck when it's so hot outside. Ting Ting replies that she's not feeling well and is a bit cold, hence the outfit. But the truth is obvious, she's trying to hide a mark left by the dog, as she calls him. She considers messaging him to ask what he's doing but decides against it and deletes the draft. For now, her focus is on avoiding him and staying hidden. She looks up, muttering for him to wait. For what? Unclear. The scene cuts back to Xiaoxi crushing a soda can and throwing it on the ground. Apparently, the protagonist has already left and they got thoroughly beaten. The smoker, however, admits it was their own fault. Hanlai was calm the entire time and behaved well, which makes him actually like the guy. He also advises Xiaoxi to forget about Pangi because in the end she's just another girl. But Xiaoxi insists he can't forget her, not only because she's beautiful, but because she's incredibly wealthy. Just considering the villa she lives in, marrying her would set him up for life. Marrying her is the fastest way for him to climb the social ladder. He then asks the guy with glasses if he's still thinking about Ting Ting. Oh boy, this poor guy doesn't even know what's already happened with her. The glasses guy asks why Xiaoxi is curious, and Xiaoxi questions if he's heard the rumors circulating among the girls. He mentions the story about Ting Ting not returning home after dinner, and now glasses guy is dying to know what happened. The scene shifts to Hanlai back in his dormitory, sitting under neon lights late at night. Brother Wine, the smoker from earlier, tells him he's a good guy and says to message him anytime he needs something. But Hanlai is more focused on making money and thinking about profitable deals. The guy with glasses wonders what kind of persuasion Hanlai uses to keep winning and making more money. He turns to the side, reflecting on how being near Pangi has drawn so much attention. Then it hits him. Strangely, Ting Ting hasn't messaged him all day. He decides to text her and invite her out the next day, but as soon as he sends the message, he realizes he's blocked again. The poor guy is shaking in disbelief that she did this out of nowhere. The next morning, Han Lai is already on the move, dedicated to fitness. After trading some stocks, he starts wondering why he hasn't received any messages. Neither Yun Yun nor Fei Fei has talked to him, which leaves him feeling a bit lonely. He questions what's going on since he doesn't remember having any issues with them recently. Deciding to brush it off for now, he heads to lunch. But just as he's at the cafeteria, Pangi grabs him and asks where her Lai Lai is eating today. Out of nowhere, he yanks her hand away and tells her that she herself said they didn't have that kind of relationship, so she shouldn't act like they do. The truth is, he's scared since Ting Ting is angry. This is the worst possible time to reveal anything about his relationship with Pangi. Some time passes and Pangi, looking confused, grabs Han Lai's shirt and asks why he's avoiding her like this. She points out that he didn't even message her yesterday and she missed him. The sly guy responds that if she missed him so much, they could get a hotel today. Relentless, isn't he? She jokingly agrees but says he'd have to inform her father which hotel it is first. Immediately, Han Lai runs off, saying he has other things to take care of and is not getting involved in that. Pangi wonders if he's avoiding her because of Ting Ting. Fixing her hair, she tells herself it's fine since she has plenty of time and will handle this slowly. For now, she just wants to find out if he and Ting Ting are meeting secretly. Han Lai, meanwhile, searches for Ting Ting, asking around until he finally spots her in a classroom next to Yun Yun. But as soon as she sees him, she turns away and completely ignores him. The poor guy has no idea why she's acting like this or what he did wrong. Not wanting to humiliate himself further, he decides to head to the gym, the best way to clear his mind. While working out, though, he keeps wondering what he did. He thought that after their night at the hotel, their relationship would improve, but she's colder than ever. To make things worse, Pangi's behavior is also off, making him wonder if they talked about what happened. He feels like he has no choice but to use his secret card to resolve this. Meanwhile, Ting Ting looks a bit down, focused on some schoolwork when her phone rings. Of course, it's Han Lai on his secret account asking if she's finished more chapters of her novel. He adds that if she's feeling sad, she can talk to him about it. Ting Ting considers telling him about what happened that night at the hotel, but decides against confiding in her friends. Thinking she can't keep it all to herself, she figures that talking to someone online who doesn't know her might be the best option. She starts typing, but instead just apologizes, saying she's finishing the last chapters. Han Lai reassures her to take her time and says if there's any problem, she can talk to him. She gets emotional, thinking he somehow noticed she was upset and genuinely cares about her. She then confesses she spent the night with a semi-god. The clueless guy feigns shock and asks her to explain, remarking that they've progressed quickly considering she didn't seem to like him before. She explains they rented a hotel room and she ended up giving herself to him. Han Lai comments that he thought she was sad about something else but sees it's just a couple's quarrel. Ting Ting corrects him, saying it's not a quarrel, it's a war. A bit hesitant, Han Lai suggests negotiating with the guy, but she insists she has no intention of doing so. She finds him much worse than the character in her story and is convinced things won't work out between them. Oddly, Han Lai accepts that she's reached the right conclusion. He asks if she's really planning to give up on everything. In his mind, she's already paid for the injustices she caused in their past lives. Treating her as just a business partner might be the best option going forward. Ting Ting replies that she's not giving up because he's like a wild dog. She knows no woman can truly control him. Instead of acting like a fool, she'll stay close, keep an eye on him, and watch the show unfold. In the meantime, she'll focus on her studies, keep training, and continue writing. When she feels strong enough, she'll face him again and win him back. This makes Han Lai laugh. Now it's clear she's distancing herself because she's afraid she won't be able to control herself. And with Pangi getting closer, he suspects the two had some sort of conversation. In his crazy mind, he thinks it's inevitable that he'll eventually become her master. As he's leaving the gym, the instructor suggests he practice using gymnastic rings to improve his balance. Though it sounds like hard work, Han Lai says he'll look into it later. Back home, he's thinking about getting closer to Brother Wang to gain a favor. Though it's unclear what his plan is, Wang asks if Han Lai really needs those fitness rings installed. Han Lai confirms he does and Wang agrees to help. Han Lai's plan is to let Wang do him a favor so they can grow closer. During their conversation, Wang discovers Han Lai is renting a hotel. He comments that it must be a suite, likely costing around 4,000 yuan. Han Lai plays dumb, claiming he has no idea what a suite costs. In reality, though, he's staying in a presidential suite. Wang looks confused. Why would a high schooler be staying in such a place? And if he really rented that suite for the year, he must have way more money than Wang expected. Taking advantage of the moment, Han Lai tells Wang that if he ever needs help, he can arrange a hotel for him too. He adds that it's a perfect place for various activities like hosting friends. Wang thanks him, and they laugh, but suddenly, Pangi shows up. She immediately calls for Han Lai, saying she's been looking for him all over the cafeteria. As she calls him over, Han Lai responds by asking why she doesn't call Ting Ting instead. While Wang has already figured out that the two probably have a relationship based on how Pangi is acting, Han Lai tries to escape, saying he has dinner plans with a friend. But Pangi turns to Brother Wang and asks if she can borrow Han Lai for a while. A bit awkwardly, Wang agrees, saying he's almost done eating anyway. Walking through the city arm in arm, Hanlai asks what he did wrong this time. She pulls her arm away and says it's nothing serious, she just felt like annoying him a bit. A little dejected, he says it's fine if that makes her happy. Then he smiles and says it's the perfect time for her to have come to him. He mentions that her father's stocks are doing very well this week, and that's why he'll visit her house to show the results. She feels a bit uneasy and asks what he's planning by wanting to go to her house. She tries to brush it off, saying he can just give her the results, and she'll pass them on to her father. But he grabs her arm and asks if she didn't say she missed him. She pulls her hand away, telling him to let go because he shouldn't touch her without her consent. Hanlai finds it amusing that she can't handle this kind of attitude. He then asks if he can go home with her. She's torn, wanting to refuse but unsure of what he might do if she doesn't agree. Besides, after the incident with Ting Ting, things have only been getting worse, so she needs to stabilize their relationship quickly. Hanlai, on the other hand, is a bit confused while she worries he might think she's promiscuous or easy. But with no other option, she agrees, saying she'd have to go home late anyway and tells him to come along. However, she adds that afterward, she plans to go to the cinema, so he should buy tickets for them. Hanlai, smiling like a fool, says if that's the deal, he'll accept. The next scene shows him standing with tickets and popcorn in hand, looking like an eager puppy waiting for her. She shows up laughing, takes some popcorn, and pops it into his mouth, thanking him for buying everything for her. Meanwhile, Hanlai notices a guy in the background taking pictures of them, but the amateur had the flash on, making it obvious. Hanlai suspects Panji herself hired this guy and wonders why she would want such a photo. The scene shifts to the cinema, and they're watching Titanic for what feels like the millionth time. Hanlai hears some noises beside him and tells Panji to stop using her phone during the movie. She looks at him and says she's not bothering anyone, especially since it's just the two of them in the whole place. But Hanlai snatches the phone from her hand, saying it's bothering him. He adds that if she starts obeying him, he'll explain the Xuking situation to her father more clearly. She turns away, saying fine as long as he doesn't say anything stupid to her dad. In truth, she was using the photo to post on her social media, avoiding having to explain anything to her father. Plus, it was the perfect move to eliminate her competition with Xuking. Hanlai, however, has already figured out that she's always scheming and up to no good. Time passes, and they arrive at her house. As soon as she announces her arrival, her mother comes out, asking if Xuking has come with her daughter again. But upon seeing Hanlai, she's startled. There he is, greeting Aunt Zhao, the cheerful hello. Her mother scolds Panji, calling her messy for bringing Hanlai over without warning. Hanlai apologizes on her behalf, saying he's actually there to meet Uncle Pan. Panji stands to the side, quietly knowing this dog is just pretending to be polite. Suddenly, they hear her mother frantically calling her husband, telling him that Hanlai is at their house. She even mentions that the two came back from the cinema together, saying it's something to celebrate. To avoid the situation, Hanlai asks Panji to show him around the house. She initially refuses, but quickly changes her mind when he mentions the incident with Ting Ting and the kiss. She yells, fine, and starts pushing him to move. As they walk around the house, they continue chatting. She notices that at least when Hanlai is quietly reading, he seems much more obedient. It would be much better if he didn't have such a dirty mouth and didn't talk so much nonsense. Hanlai catches her staring and asks why she's looking at him like that. Embarrassed, she turns away and tells him to stop being so narcissistic because she wasn't staring at him at all. And even if she was, what would he do about it? Charge her for it. He replies that he'd never do such a thing. But if she wants to give him money, she's welcome to because it's always nice to have extra. Suddenly, he asks if she remembers what they talked about the first time they met. She asks, what was it? He reminds her that he mentioned how beautiful her eyes were. Oh boy, there he goes again, making his move. She blushes slightly and glances at him. The two stand there awkwardly for a moment, looking like fools. She mutters that it's nothing special. Then they lock eyes again. Did something happen? Doesn't seem like it because she asks why he doesn't stop looking at her like that. Quickly changing the subject, she asks what's going on between him and Xuking. As far as she remembers, they'd agreed he wouldn't talk to her anymore. Suddenly, they hear her mother's voice at the door, announcing that her father is arriving. While her mother asks if the boy wants to stay for dinner, Hanlai already has his hand behind Panji's head. She tries to say something, but it's too late. He kisses her. Hanlai has been on the offensive in recent chapters. She's left flustered, and he tells her to stay quiet, warning her that her mother is right outside and will find out if she makes a sound. Annoyed, she clenches her fists and storms off, saying she won't forget this. Opening the door, she asks her mother what she needs. Ban Zhao stares at her, glances at her lips, and seems to notice something. No way did this mother figure out a 2-second kiss. She's like Sherlock Holmes. She tells her daughter to invite Hanlai to dinner, insisting she stop giving the boy such a hard time. Inwardly, she wonders why her daughter likes Ting Ting and not him. Panji, confused, says she's never done anything bad to the boy. At that moment, Hanlai steps in, saying she was just showing him her comic book collection. The mother invites him to dinner since it's getting late. Hanlai tries to excuse himself, saying he's heading to the gym. But the mother insists that being a little late for training won't be an issue. She gives her daughter a look, and Panji immediately understands the unspoken message. She clings to Han Lai, saying training on an empty stomach would be worse because he needs energy. The mother, emotional, feels her plans for her daughter and Han Lai are finally working out. She declares it's settled. She'll start cooking now, and the two of them can stay together in the meantime. Some time passes, and they're sitting on the bed. Panji moves away and tells him to stop trying to kiss her. She warns him that she knows he only kissed her earlier to dodge questions about Ting Ting. He claims he has no idea what she's talking about since Ting Ting has her own life. If she wants to know, she should ask Ting Ting herself, not him. Playing dumb, she says she already talked to Ting Ting, who admitted she was with him. Han Lai stands firm, saying it seems he's being used as a scapegoat by both of them. Panji looks puzzled. She's not entirely sure why Ting Ting didn't say much, and she only knows the two didn't return together last night. She turns to him and asks where he was then, since he usually sleeps in the dormitory. He explains he was on the second floor with some seniors, one of whom was named Wang Xiao Chang. She recognizes the name and knows this guy loves partying and women. Why was Han Lai with him? The protagonist explains it's all thanks to her and the problems she keeps creating. After the day Han Lai had to defend Panji from those guys, everyone started thinking they had some sort of relationship. And now the seniors came to talk to him. Panji feels a bit nervous, wondering if those guys were planning to beat him up. The truth is, she wanted to create some trouble for Han Lai, but not to the point where he'd get hurt. All she wanted was to give him a little headache. Meanwhile, in the seniors' room, the guys are kicking the walls. They've just seen the picture of Panji and Han Lai at the cinema on social media. Jiaoxi is fuming, practically foaming at the mouth, ready to kill the bastard who stole his girl so blatantly. He declares they need to teach this kid a lesson and asks Wester if he'll help him. Poor Wester is slumped in a corner, dejectedly saying he'll try to do something. The truth is, he doesn't want trouble with Jiaoxi or Han Lai, but has somehow gotten dragged into all this. Sometime later, Panji's father finally arrives home and asks where his daughter is. When he looks to the side, he sees her with Han Lai and she's wearing her high school uniform. He asks why, and she explains that Han Lai wanted to see her in it, so she decided to wear it for him. She's a bit embarrassed because while she was changing, he kept sneaking kisses and similar gestures. She ended up tolerating it since it would help her with the trust issues her father had been having. Her father is impressed that she went so far as to change her clothes just for this boy. Apparently, the money and time he invested in Han Lai are paying off rather quickly. He then comments that as long as the two are behaving, that's all that matters. He even tells Han Lai that his wrist looks like it needs a nice watch and says they'll look at his collection after dinner. Han Lai immediately realizes why he's being so friendly and responds that he only came to bring Panji home and didn't intend to impose. He also mentions that the investment accounts performed well this week. However, Han Lai is worried about how his relationship with Panji will develop. If her father ever discovers the truth, everything will fall apart. For now, his plan is to avoid taking any real responsibility in the matter. Panji's father praises the gains and asks if Han Lai thinks he'll win the competition. Han Lai replies that as much as he knows about finances, it's impossible to predict everything. Even with strong fundamentals, a bit of luck is necessary to win such tournaments. That said, he promises to do his best and give it his all to win the championship. Panji silently muses that the dog looks quite handsome when he's serious. Her father, meanwhile, is thinking that the boy has a bright future. However, his main focus is still bringing his daughter back to the family fold. He tells Panji to help her mother in the kitchen because he wants to have a private conversation with Han Lai. As soon as she leaves, he turns to Han Lai and says his ideas are excellent. If things keep progressing like this, he has nothing to worry about. However, he advises Han Lai to remember to work hard in his career but also pay close attention to relationships. That's why he wants to know how things are going between him and Panji. Han Lai is startled by how direct the question is but responds that they talk a bit every day and occasionally have dinner together. He mentions they even watched a movie earlier and that his only problem is managing enough time to study. Han Lai's plan is to continue developing this relationship gradually and make as much money as possible. He tells her father that since he entrusted him with the account, he feels a strong obligation to study hard and work diligently. Panji's father responds that if Han Lai is feeling so pressured by his studies, he could hire a tutor to help him. Privately, the father wonders why this foolish boy doesn't understand that if he marries his daughter, the $3 million in the investment account will be nothing compared to the inheritance he could gain. The father then asks how things are going between Han Lai and Ting Ting. Han Lai replies that since they're in the same class, they spend quite a bit of time together, during lunch and sometimes even in the evenings. The father nearly loses it, trying to stay calm, while Han Lai feigns innocence, asking what the problem is. A while later, the scene shifts to dinner. Apparently, Han Lai talked with Panji's father about some hotels and local developments. It seems there are some high-end hotels in the area that are always fully booked, while other parts of the city have hotels that aren't as busy. He explains it all with charts and graphs, but that's essentially the gist of it. The parents are thrilled that the two are having such a productive conversation, while Panji is sneakily posting a photo of Han Lai on social media. The caption says she's listening deeply as he chats with her father. Even Ting Ting and Jiaoxi like the post. Poor Jiaoxi leaves some confused question marks in the comments. Back in the seniors' room, one of them advises against messing with Han Lai, saying the kid isn't normal. But Jiaoxi is still fuming, declares that there's no way he'll let it slide. His friend tells him to let it go, pointing out that Pangi and Han Lai already seem to be together. But Jiaoxi refuses, saying he won't give up on Pangi. He recounts how his uncle facilitated his connection with her, and that even her father doesn't dislike him. That's why he won't let the bastard Han Lai steal his opportunity. The guy in the white shirt tells Jiaoxi to hand over the room key, assuring him they won't hurt Han Lai. Reluctantly, Jiaoxi hesitates, wondering if these guys have lost their minds. Suddenly, a guy named Kong Yis appears and tells him to stop being a coward. Han Lai warns Kong not to get involved, but Kong brushes him off, saying he's curious to see what Han Lai is capable of. Kong grabs Huang Wei by the collar, questioning if he really wants to see what happens. Huang Wei shakes him off, looking distraught, and warns them that they don't know who they're dealing with. He mutters that Han Lai is a psychopath who will hammer them. The others insist on going through with it until the guy in the white shirt announces the plan. They'll strike at 11 p.m. Reluctantly, Huang Wei pulls out the room key and hands it over, cautioning them that Han Lai is terrifying. The group leaves the room, wondering if they should bring more people along. Meanwhile, Han Lai stays behind, sensing something isn't right. The guy with glasses asks where he's going, but Han Lai just replies it's none of his business and slams the door on his way out. Han Lai then grabs his phone and informs the teachers that members of the student council will be inspecting rooms that night, so they shouldn't worry. Later, in room 404, Han Lai enters. He turns on the light, unaware that someone outside is watching. A message is sent to Jiaoxi, and the group gets the update. Jiaoxi declares that in 10 minutes, they'll launch their attack. Han Lai better be ready. Inside the room, Han Lai is cheerfully examining the setup, noticing the fitness rings his friend had installed on the ceiling. He's impressed with how quickly they were set up. However, there's a white cloth hanging nearby and he has no idea what it's for. Curious, he imagines pulling himself up and using it for some kind of stretching exercise. A bit eccentric, he decides it'll be fun to try out. He grabs the rings, pulls himself up, and starts doing a chin-up. Just as he places his chin on the bar, the lights suddenly go out and the door swings open. Jiaoxi and his friends execute their plan to catch Han Lai completely off guard. The plan was to beat Han Lai to a pulp and make him beg for mercy. Jiaoxi was ready to punch him in the face and warn him to stay away from Pangi. However, the scene he witnessed when the door opened was far more horrifying than he had anticipated. He froze in the doorway and calmly asked why he wasn't going in. When Jiaoxi opened the door, calling everyone cowards, he was stunned. It looked like Han Lai was hanging by his neck. He was just hanging there, motionless and in the dark. No one could see his face. Jiaoxi immediately dropped his bat and ran off, shouting that the crazy guy wasn't alive anymore. One of the others scolded him for being a coward, reminding him that they hadn't even done anything to Han Lai yet. Kong, however, admitted that something wasn't right with this guy. Determined, he said he'd take Han Lai down and told everyone to call an ambulance. But as Kong approached, Han Lai's foot moved, sending chills through him. Terrified, he froze, wondering why it seemed like the body was alive. Suddenly, more people arrived at the door, asking what was going on. Everyone stared in shock at the scene before them. The startled group panicked, yelling that the room was haunted and fleeing in terror. Kong, poor guy, ended up stuck on the stairs, claiming something strange was going on and that this wasn't normal. He banged on the door, begging to be let out, insisting they shouldn't lock him in there. Meanwhile, Han Lai, smirking, bid them all a good night and flipped them off as they scrambled to escape. Obviously, Han Lai had realized right away that the group was planning to ambush him in the middle of the night. He pulled himself down from the rings, muttering about how bold these fools were to try something like this. He decided that if he didn't teach him a lesson, he wouldn't be Han Lai. Grabbing the hammer he kept under his pillow, he declared it was time to settle the score. Meanwhile, his doormates were running toward the room. Han Lai explained that this attack was happening because one of the guys apparently wanted to date Pangi. The red-haired one asked how many there were, and Han Lai said it was a whole group. But then they stopped in their tracks as they saw several guys standing in front of the room, panting and scared. Confused, they asked what these guys were doing in the hallway. From the back, someone came running, screaming about a dead person and yelling for someone to call the police or an exorcist, because there was a zombie in the building. One of Han Lai's doormates misunderstood, thinking something terrible might have happened to him. At the door of room 404, they knocked, urging whoever was inside to come out. Han Lai remarked that if no one was answering, something must have happened. Brother Wang suggested turning on the lights. Finally, the red-haired guy stepped forward, placed his hand on the doorknob, and began to open the door. He was confused when he saw Han Lai calmly reading while the intruders were crouched on the floor, looking terrified. Afterward, Han Lai asked who else had just entered the room. A new arrival introduced himself as Liu Ying-jun, explaining that he had only come in to ensure there weren't any problems. Liu Ying continues slowly entering the room until he steps on something strange. It felt kind of sticky, and he wondered if it might be blood. However, just as he decides to sniff it to check the smell, the lights suddenly come back on. Han Lai wonders if this is going to mess up his plan. That's when Liu Ying sees what he stepped on. It was someone's intestines partially eaten. The guy throws up because of this. He clearly has a weak stomach. Meanwhile, the protagonist is standing there looking confused. Brother Wang enters the room, already noticing the bad smell, asking if everyone is okay. As soon as they notice him enter, someone clings to his leg, begging for help and saying they want to be saved. However, Hanlai speaks sternly, asking who gave them permission to move. At this, Wang asks for help and goes over to the boy to wash his face. He turns, glancing at the protagonist, who stares back at him, causing him to tremble. The fool is already on the ground, apologizing, saying he would never have gotten involved in something like this. It was all a terrible coincidence. But Hanlai only questions if they think this place is a playground where they can come and go as they please. If they really wanted to leave, they'd first have to clean the place up. Wang tells the boy to calm down, saying he'll call someone to clean up because the smell is pretty bad. Seeing the boy get up, he asks if he has somewhere to go and if he's okay. Hanlai smiles at this. Then he changes his expression, saying he was just joking with his friends and of course he's not angry. They don't need to worry, he has somewhere to stay and all he wants is for them to clean this up. Wang even extends his hand, saying it's fine and that he can go. Just as the boy seems to relax, Wang smacks him on the head. Liu Ying then asks what Hanlai's background is, wondering why Brother Wang is treating him so well. Wang replies that they'll talk about it later, as they first need to clean the room. After all, if Panji found out about all of this, they'd be done for. The scene shifts to Panji lying calmly on a bed. She receives a photo of his neck, with him saying her friends are terrifying. She's startled and wonders if they really hit him. Her mom sees her putting on her shoes and asks where she's going so late. Heading for the door, she says something happened at school and she urgently needs to go. Her mom wants to know what it is, but she just waves goodbye, saying she'll be back soon. Left alone, her mom wonders why this child has been acting so strange lately. In the car, Panji asks where the boy is, and he says he's at the hotel. Another problem incoming. In the mirror, Hanlai looks battered. His neck is red because he had been hanging from a bedsheet. He's amazed at how those old guys in the park pull off such maneuvers. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. It's obviously Panji, frantically saying she wants to take him to the hospital. She was scared by the photos, imagining the rest of his body must be even worse. When the door opens, he grabs her arm and pulls her inside. Before a second passes, she's already against the wall, asking what's wrong. She tries to explain, saying she knows he's mad but didn't think things would turn out like this. She says he should let her go first because they need to go to the hospital. Hanlai just says, yes, he's mad. He pulls her by the arm, saying he doesn't want her fake apologies. He warns her to accept his revenge. Poor Panji, all red, starts admitting she was wrong. He throws her onto the bed, and it looks like a spanking is coming. Before she can ask what he's doing, she already gets the first smack. She screams, apologizing and saying she was truly wrong. She runs to the corner of the bed, telling him to stop messing around so they can go to the hospital. He moves closer, asking why his neck ended up like that. Did they strangle him or do something else? That would be a crime and he should call the police. Now it's her turn to go on the offensive. She cups his face, asking if he has more injuries. He then says the spot where she's sitting hurts quite a bit. She pauses for a second and glances down. Immediately, she yells at him, asking how he can act like a pervert after getting beaten up. He tells her to go easy on her movements because it hurts, and she says she's leaving. But he grabs her arm, telling her not to move. She's awake now, admitting her body was aching a lot. But the truth is his body hurts because of the gym. She pauses for a second, asking if it still hurts now that she's shifted back a bit. The rascal gets up, saying maybe she should try kissing him. In her kisses relieve pain. The fool seems to believe this. She fixes her hair, saying it better not be a cheap lie. She gives him a peck on the cheek or maybe the nose. It's unclear. She steps back, saying now they can go to the hospital. But the boy moves in quickly, grabbing her back, pulling her close and stealing a kiss. The poor girl is left bewildered, not understanding what just happened. He's too fast. He says only a real kiss will relieve his pain. She immediately starts scolding him, saying she realizes now he's not really hurt and is just playing with her. He replies that he didn't get hurt because they were unlucky to mess with him. If it had been anyone else, the story might have been different. She glares at him, looking annoyed. Some time passes and seems he explained everything to her. She asks about the lights going out and if that was enough. Confident, he responds yes, but she doesn't seem to believe him. She says she doubts he'd let those guys off so easily, so what is he planning? Hanlai asks if she thinks he should call the police to ensure they get punished, or if she already knows something like that wouldn't work well. For those who mess with him, he'll have plenty of opportunities, but there's something else he's more interested in now. She asks what that is, and he says it's the desire to collaborate with her. That's when he proposes the idea of a hotel, explaining that the guys keep gathering on the second floor of the college because there isn't a cheap, good hotel nearby. If they could provide that at a good price, they could make a lot of money. Panji immediately asks if his plan is to keep cutting the school's power to make those guys leave and look for his hotel. She admits she knows that at least everyone in that dorm has plenty of money. She then asks where he plans to rent for the guys, and he replies that's where her partnership comes in. He needs a small investment of 1.5 million that could bring in 300,000 a month in profit. He knows 300,000 a month is little for her, but if she earned it on her own, she wouldn't have to rely on her father anymore. That way, she wouldn't have to submit to a forced marriage, which is undoubtedly worse. She seems thoughtful while he tells her she should seize the chance to take control. She hesitates, knowing he's right, but in some ways, she's already resigned to her fate. Suddenly, she says 2 million, surprising the boy. She says he's right. She's tired of this predetermined life. Since he's interesting, she'll give him the chance to show what he can achieve. If it works, she'll invest more, but she doubts he can pull it off with just 2 million. If he fails, she'll just consider it entertainment. She looks at her hand, asks if she's really giving 2 million so easily. She says yes because she just doesn't want to be bored. He takes her hand, saying it's a pleasure to do business with someone so direct. But suddenly she stands up, saying he must have misunderstood something. Confused, he wonders if she changed her mind. She walks toward him, saying they're not partners. At this moment, they're accomplices. Though honestly, I don't know what she means since she's not doing anything criminal. It's her money. But she says the money will be in his account by morning. He doesn't need to worry about the transfers. She'll handle it. Then she leaves, waving goodbye to her accomplice. She really left and didn't do anything. The boy missed the chance to score and got humiliated by the girl. The fool even turns a bit red, saying she left him, let's say, excited. Back in the field, the guys are all terrified. Someone is yelling at them, asking if they really thought they could hit him like that. Kong, fed up with the scolding, stands up, saying next time he'll kill that kid. With his hands blazing, he says he'll rip off his head, even if it means spending 10 or 20 years in prison. Wang tells him to stop thinking like that, saying it's easy for him but would complicate things for the rest of them. Besides, they need to understand that Han Lai might seem lazy, but he has a lot of connections. He pretends to be a nobody because he enjoys it. Then Zhao Xi seems to notice something. He comments that the watch Han Lai was wearing is from Panji's father's collection. He remembers visiting their house last time. Her dad had taken him on a tour and showed him the famous Rolex. At the time, he mentioned it was a gift for his future son-in-law. The friends joke that he's so obsessed with Panji he remembers such details. Wang then advises them to stop messing with Han Lai, but they insist, saying it's just a stupid watch. One of them says he's not afraid of that bastard. Wang then tells them Han Lai rents the presidential suite at the Marriott Hotel every day. The fools look at each other, wondering if that's possible. One of them stands up, saying it's a lie. It's impossible for a high schooler to have that much money. He's sure Han Lai has an average background, so there's no way that could happen. Liu Ying says it's unlikely Wang is being fooled, so it's probably true. Wang replies that he's talked to Han Lai and at any moment could ask about the suite and visit it. If they catch him at the wrong moment, he'd be lying and exposed. At 10 or 11 in the morning, the boy wakes up to his phone ringing. It was a message from Pangi saying the 2 million had already been transferred and she asked if he'd received it. He got up, surprised to find the money in his account even before he woke up. She was much more efficient than he had imagined. At the hotel reception, a man introduces himself as Bao Hua, the vice president of the hotel, and thanks Han Lai for supporting them. Han Lai cuts straight to the point, asking how much it would cost to rent the presidential suite long-term. They move to another room where a woman serves tea, saying to call her if they need anything. Bao Hua offers tea to Han Lai, but he stays silent. Han Lai knows that because of his young age, he needs to act more arrogant. Otherwise, no one will take him seriously. He tells Bao Hua to name the final price immediately. The man explains that the price would vary depending on the duration of the lease. Han Lai reveals that he wants to rent the suite for 2 or 3 years, the time they'll be in college. Bao Hu becomes excited, thinking this young man is much more generous than expected. He says that if Han Lai pays up front, he could get up to a 40% discount. But Han Lai pushes back, asking if the man thinks he's a fool. He states he'll pay it most annually, and besides, he knows the suite is only occupied 30% of the time. Considering the monthly discount is 20%, the 40% annual discount seems too low. Embarrassed, Bao Hua claims Han Lai's information is incorrect, stating the suite was occupied for 175 nights last year. Han Lai counters, saying most of those nights were VIP card holders getting upgrades when the suite was empty. Bao Hua wonders how this damned kid knows so much about how the hotel operates. After some negotiating, Han Lai offers to pay 30% of the total cost to rent the suite for the entire year. Bao Hua, looking defeated, says it's impossible. Even with his authority, he can't do that. Han Lai replies that in that case, he'll go to the hotel across the street. Bao Hua starts sweating and suggests they discuss further. Eventually, the card is swiped. Our boy is set to pay 16,000 per day. Annually, it would cost 5.76 million. However, with his special card covering 80% of the cost, he only spends 1.15 million. Additionally, he receives a lifetime VIP card from the hotel. Now, everywhere he goes, he's pampered with 24-hour VIP treatment. The card also grants him access to various exclusive spots around the city. He then receives a call from Brother Wang, who apologizes awkwardly for everything that happened the day before. Wang suggests they meet up if Han Lai has time. Han Lai casually replies that he's at the Marriott Hotel and that they can decide on a time to come over. Liu Ying asks if it's confirmed, and Wang says yes. The meeting would be at the Marriott, and soon someone would pick them up. They're impressed it was that easy. Wang then calls Xiao Yu, the guy with glasses, saying Han Lai specifically requested him. Later at the hotel, Han Lai informs a staff member that he's invited some friends. He orders the best food and everything available. The only downside is that he'll have to pay out of pocket. Luckily, this earns him points on his system. Minutes later, his university friends arrive, all smiling. As he greets them, he notices everyone is excited to see his home. Even someone named Chen Lu, Fang's girlfriend, though Han Lai doesn't know who Fang is, has come along. Two more lively and attractive girls join, making it a full-on party. The one with purple hair is Zhao Shengman, who's someone's girlfriend. The one with green hair is Wang Qiang, who once hit on Han Lai. Han Lai extends his hand and welcomes everyone, telling them to feel at home. The butlers serve drinks, and Wang Qiang is in awe of the legendary presidential suite. A staff member brings out desserts, saying Han Lai ordered them especially for the girls. Wang Qiang enthusiastically stands up, calling Han Lai very considerate. With a mischievous smile, he says they're all classmates, so of course he'll treat everyone well. Wang hugs him, saying that's why he likes Han Lai. He always pays attention to the details. Someone in the room comments that the most admirable people are those who can solve problems easily. Zhao Shengman agrees, saying no girl would reject someone as kind and thoughtful as Han Lai. If she didn't already have a boyfriend, she'd be in love with Master Han. Han Lai feels embarrassed as she says this in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Chen Lu wants to explore while the others chat. Han Lai tells her it's fine and to feel free to look around. She and another girl leave while the rest stay behind. Wang takes the opportunity to apologize again to Han Lai for everything that happened. One of them asks how Han Lai knew all of that would happen. Han Lai replies it was all a coincidence. He was just doing some fitness training. Xiao Yu, deep in thought, figures their luck just ran out. Liu Ying adds that the conflicts still cause problems for everyone. Han Lai asks what happened. Xiao Yu reveals that the school announced all lights would be turned off after 11 p.m. Han Lai keeps playing video games and chatting, but now staying at the college isn't an option anymore. His expression changes as he asks what this has to do with him. Han Lai has no intention of getting closer to that damned Xiao Yu. He knows the guy is a backstabber who could betray him at any moment. Xiao Yu awkwardly says he knows Han Lai is also a victim in all of this. But Han Lai sits calmly on the sofa, thinking that Xiao Yu must also be behind all of it. He sends a message to Panji, asking if she can help him set up a little show for something specific. She agrees, and Han Lai stands up, saying he just received a message. He claims the lights out situation might be related to him and that he'll try to solve it. Wang, left looking dumbfounded, yells for Xiao Yu as soon as Han Lai leaves. He asks why Xiao Yu suddenly started accusing Han Lai, saying it was all his fault. Xiao Yu, looking as clueless as ever, says he spoke without thinking. The truth is he can't control himself when he's around that damn Han Lai. Suddenly, a balloon is tossed in front of them and someone asks why everyone is so serious. It's Wang Qiang mentioning that they finished their tour. Zhao Sheng says she saw a massive swimming pool on the lower floor, but it's too cold to swim. Someone chimes in, saying it's heated, and asks if they'd like to go swimming. Of course it's Han Lai, who adds that he can even arrange swimsuits for everyone. Han Lai then calls Xiao Yu over and apologizes. He explains that Panji found out about the incident and told her father, who spoke with someone from the school. That's why they're now turning off the lights. He just finds it odd that no names were mentioned. Liu Ying questions if Han Lai is implying someone deliberately reported everyone. Wang says it's possible since some people don't like the nighttime chaos. The girls look confused, not understanding what they're talking about. Xiao Ying comments that the dormitory nights will now be much more monitored. He's worried because his friends have other places to go, but he only had the dorm, meaning he'll now be alone. Without his school friends, he has no one left. Plus, he used to sell beer and other things, earning almost 80,000 before graduation. Xiao Yu starts talking about discussing things with the school, but Han Lai interrupts, calling everyone together. He suggests saving such discussions for later, as they should enjoy the moment. Liu Ying agrees, and Han Lai takes responsibility, saying it's his fault, so they shouldn't worry. He invites the girls and says he'll take everyone to the pool. At the pool, Wang is already happy, saying he came to apologize, but is now having fun. Han Lai reassures him, saying it's fine, they're brothers. As long as everyone's happy, he's happy too, especially since the place is so big and he often feels lonely. Wang agrees, saying that even with all the services, sometimes it's a bit sad having no one around. Just then, Wang Qiang appears, stealing the show. Of course, she comes in confidently, asking Han Lai what he thinks of her swimsuit. She's impressed, noting it seems to be from Mark and must have cost a lot. He simply replies that she looks good and doesn't need to be so polite with him. She then asks if he knows how to swim, and Han Lai says he hasn't swum in a long time. Meanwhile, he imagines wanting to see the three other girls in swimsuits. Zhao Sheng interrupts, asking why he looks so distracted. She wants to know if she looks good in her swimsuit since she goes to the gym every day. Every time she invited her boyfriend to swim, he preferred hanging out with his friends. Now she's finally able to have fun with Liu Ying, though it looks like she might make her boyfriend jealous. But Han Lai, ever the Sigma, says she should remind her boyfriend more often, and he might spend more time with her. She insists she's already complained plenty, but he just says she nags too much. Ken Lu then grabs Zhao Sheng from behind, saying it's time for her to get in the water. She drags Zhao Sheng and takes her away. Wang Qiang tells Han Lai that Zhao Sheng is in an arranged marriage. Apparently, her parents paired her with her boyfriend since they were kids. Han Lai thanks her for letting him know. She then asks how things are going between him and Panji. He pauses for a second and says their situation is a bit complicated. She stares at him briefly, then turns away, saying she was just curious. Suddenly, Yu appears and says he needs to discuss something with Wang Tang King about the student council. He asks to speak with her alone for a moment. She gets up and says goodbye to Hanlai, promising to return shortly. Hanlai notices something strange and wonders if something is going on between them. They walk off toward the storage room. She stops and asks what's so urgent that he needed to speak with her alone. Out of nowhere, Yu grabs her arm and pushes her against the wall. She asks why he's acting crazy and says she hasn't done anything to provoke him. Desperate, he asks if she also likes Hanlai. She replies that she already rejected Yu before and tells him to move on. She starts struggling to free herself, saying it doesn't matter to her if Yu has feelings for Hanlai. She demands he let go, pointing out that she's never disrespected him. But instead, Yu tightens his grip and slams her against the wall again. She tells him to stop, reminding him there are lots of people around, and if anyone sees this, he'll embarrass himself. Hanlai then appears, apologizing and asking if he's interrupting something. He says the food is ready, and everyone is waiting upstairs. Wang Tang immediately breaks free, thanks him for showing up, and says she's excited to eat. Hanlai casually replies that it's good to know he wasn't interrupting anything. However, Yu knows that Bastard did it on purpose. Ma'am, you were on the verge of going to jail, and he just saved you from it. Later, they knock on Huang's door, and he opens it, thanking them for finally arriving. Huang asks where Yu is, and Wang Tang says he had something to take care of and seems to have left. Hanlai tells him not to worry, they'll treat him to dinner another time. Huang agrees but mentions the student council seems to be a mess lately. He urges everyone to start eating since the food is ready. The table is set with a luxurious feast, crab, bamboo dumplings, and various other dishes. Despite the spread, Hanlai looks indifferent, as if he's already tired of it all. He picks up the drink menu, dismisses beer and liquor, and orders some expensive wine instead. He justifies it by saying it's essential to spend big to keep control over everyone. When the wine is served, the system dings and he unlocks a new ability related to wine. Now his resistance to getting drunk is higher, and he earns double experience whenever he spends money on wine. A notification also mentions that system traits can be merged, leaving him slightly confused about this new feature. Finally, the wine arrives, costing 5,000 per bottle. Wang Tang takes a sip and immediately praises it, saying the flavors are rich and exquisite. She thanks him, saying she never would have tasted something so amazing without him. Everyone at the table starts complimenting him, calling him generous. Liu Yang, who seems knowledgeable about wine, explains there are 3 harvests a year. Clearly an expert. Hanlai just says he picked the most expensive one without knowing how it was made. Wang jokes that Hanlai is being too extravagant. They were fine with something simple. But Hanlai insists they're honored guests and he feels guilty if he didn't provide the best. Everyone raises their glasses and Wang proposes a toast to their dear Hanlai. Time passes and people begin leaving, waving goodbye. For a moment, it seemed like Hanlai and Wang Tang might connect, but here comes Wang wanting to talk again. Hanlai asks what it's about and Wang mentions an issue with Kong. He says he doesn't want the tension between them to last since they're all classmates. Hanlai bluntly replies that he doesn't care. Feeling awkward, Wang brings up that Kong is skilled in martial arts and suggests settling things with a fight. Hanlai shrugs, saying they can set a date for the match. Wang tries to warn him it's a bad idea, but Hanlai reassures him that fighting is the only way to handle someone like Kong. Confident, Hanlai declares it's settled and leaves. But Wang remains uneasy, certain Hanlai will get beaten. Meanwhile, Panji is sitting quietly at a cafe. Someone arrives asking why she called them out of nowhere. It's Hanlai smiling brightly and she asks why he looks so happy. He replies that it's because he has a fantastic sponsor and she says he's good at sweet talking. As he sits, she asks if his mom is available since some friends of hers from the capital are visiting. Apparently, one of them is interested in the stock market but isn't very skilled. Her father has been talking about Hanlai to this group and they want to meet him. While it might not be as profitable as working with her father, it could help him expand his network. Hanlai agrees, thinking that since he doesn't have much accumulated wealth, earning money using others' funds is the best option. She tells him the meeting will be at 12:30 p.m., and he thanks her, saying he'll do his best. Standing up, he says he needs to leave to get some rest. But she mentions she has information about Uncle Du, the big shot negotiator, for tomorrow. He asks why she doesn't just tell him, and she replies that there's a price for unlocking it. He looks confused until she says he'll need to give her a kiss. A kiss and a photo she can post, and she'll share the info. The next scene cuts to them in a changing room, standing close. She pushes him away, saying one kiss was enough. He wipes his mouth, saying she was the one who asked for it in the first place. She looks flustered, saying she asked, but not like that. Meanwhile, Hanlai, now blushing, insists on getting the information. She shouts, calling him a scoundrel she hates, storming off and saying she shouldn't have invited him there. He pleads for her to share the information and asks what she meant earlier. Instead of answering directly, she says he urgently needs a proper suit, matching shoes, and some accessories. She clarifies that she's not trying to humiliate him but explains there are situations where he needs to dress appropriately. Then she reveals what she's been hiding. She explains that in this city, the government and politicians have far more control than most companies. That's why it's more important to associate with political families than wealthy ones. She hands him a blue gem, saying it suits him perfectly. The scene shifts to a private club. Her father calls out to Han Lai, smiling widely, and introduces him to Mr. Du. And here we go again. Han Lai, the charmer of old men. Mr. Du embraces him, saying they need to chat and drink together. Pan Yi's father calls her over, asking her to arrange drinks and some fine wine. She reluctantly agrees, realizing she's being sidelined. They bring out a rare wine from 1984 with only a few bottles in existence, clearly worth a fortune. Han Lai stands up, announcing that as a sign of respect, he'll drink it all in one go. Pan Yi looks worried that he might get drunk. Her father, however, is pleased, knowing that the best way to get to know someone is when they're drunk, as it reveals their true nature. He raises his own glass, declaring he'll drink his in one go as well, slamming it on the table afterward. Mr. Du compliments Han Lai, asking if he drinks often since he seems to have great tolerance. Han Lai modestly replies that he rarely drinks. Du laughs, saying it's impossible for someone with such tolerance to be inexperienced. He fills Han Lai's glass again, toasting for good luck. Thanks to the system, Han Lai doesn't get drunk, so he plays along. They continue drinking, chatting, and having a great time while Pan Yi watches them lose their minds. A few minutes later, Du slams his glass on the table, asking why he can't make more money. He explains that he's cautious, neither greedy nor reckless, yet the opportunity never seems to come. Han Lai reassures him, saying people who follow steady strategies tend to profit gradually and might suddenly hit the jackpot. Maybe your time is coming, he says. Du thanks him for the encouragement, but insists it's unlikely. Even during the last market boom, he didn't make anything. He adds that amateurs like him can't compete with seasoned traders. Han Lai counters, saying that even top traders eventually lose. Pan Yi's father laughs while Du accuses Han Lai of being full of tricks. He says Han Lai claimed not to drink much but was clearly faking it. Dao then admits he likes Han Lai and offers him a chance to manage an account. The terms would be the same as his arrangement with Mr. Pan, with no need to worry about short-term losses. However, the amount is modest, just 10 million, leaving Han Lai momentarily stunned. Before he can respond, Du excuses himself, saying he needs the restroom. Pan Yi's father volunteers to guide him, saying he doesn't want him tripping over and breaking anything, and promises to return shortly. Once they leave, Pan Yi remarks that they always use the same tricks. Han Lai asks if she means the drinking, and she nods. She explains her father always does this, getting people drunk to reveal their true nature. Han Lai comments that he seems to have passed the test since Du is willing to hand over the account. She laughs, saying it's more likely they got embarrassed about not being able to outdrink him. Their plan was probably to go vomit in the restroom and come back to drink more, so he should be careful. Han Lai considers pretending to be drunk to avoid an endless drinking session. A little later, they return. Du declares it's time to drink again, but both are startled. Han Lai is asleep on Pan Yi's lap. She claims he drank too much and dozed off as soon as they left. Her father chuckles, saying the boy got too confident and should have taken it easy. He asks Pan Yi to take care of him, but she knows he's faking it and wonders why she's stuck dealing with him. Her father orders her to get him out of there since he has things to discuss with Du. She drags the passed out Han Lai out, muttering for him to hurry up and walk. They step out of the taxi near the school and she tells him to stop pretending they walked far enough. She threatens to expose his act if he keeps it up. When she asks how he learned not to get drunk, he responds in Hawaii. She laughs, accusing him of watching too many cartoons. Someone calls out from behind, "Brother Lai." It's been a while, but here comes the familiar trio. Yun Yun immediately asks what happened to him, seeing Pan Yi carrying him. Pan Yi explains he attended a social event with her and ended up drinking too much. She mentions she's planning to buy a few things and asks if Ting Ting wants to join. But Ting Ting just smirks, saying she has no interest in seeing how people parade their dogs around. Both Han Lai and Pan Yi are shocked. Han Lai says, "Did she just call Pan Yi a dog?" Pan Yi calmly responds, "Obviously that insult was directed at you." Han Lai looks devastated, realizing Ting Ting hasn't spoken to him in 3 days and still hasn't given up her grudge. Maybe it wasn't a good idea for him to keep being cold toward Ting Ting. Han Lai needed to find an opportunity to communicate with her. Suddenly, he stood up and Pan Yi noticed he'd stopped pretending to be drunk. He told her she was being petty, making him rely on her so much. She started arguing, but he just said they should hurry up and go shopping. The scene shifts to Calm, who's asking if someone is serious. When he realizes they are, he accepts. Zhao Tzu and Xiao Yu ask what's going on. Trembling with excitement, Kong declares it's time for revenge. That pretty boy had dared to challenge him to a fight. Finally, he was going to teach him a lesson. But wait, why is he looking at a knife? This was supposed to be boxing. Wang sends a message to Han Lai, letting him know Kong accepted the challenge. Han Lai, meanwhile, is loaded with Gucci bags as Pan Yi drags him to the next store. Before entering, he spots a gold chain with green accents and seems intrigued. Inside, a saleswoman compliments Pan Yi and says she has the perfect necklace for her. However, Pan Yi's attention is drawn elsewhere, to a bracelet on display. It's gold adorned with custom jade pieces, the very one Han Lai had been eyeing. The saleswoman explains that it's already reserved and the last of its kind in the store. There will be a similar piece at an upcoming auction if she wants to try buying it there. Panji looks disappointed and asks for his sapphire necklace instead. Hanlai jokes that he always thought rich people had their jewelry delivered to their homes. Panji explains that shopping in person is about the fun of finding surprises. Only a rich person's idea of fun, Hanlai thinks to himself. He remarks that she seems distracted and asks if she's talking to a girl. Hanlai replies that he's talking to brother Wang. Kong wants a fight, and Hanlai has decided to beat him up. Panji looks alarmed, asking if he's serious about fighting. Hanlai casually responds that it's not a fight, just training between friends. He grabs the bags and walks off, telling her not to worry since he's not ordinary. At the gym, Kong is pounding on a punching bag, eager for Hanlai to arrive. Jiaoxi and Xiao Yu linger nervously in the corner, having been roped into this fight but clearly afraid. Xiao Yu tries to reassure them, saying it'll be 3 against 1. They can't lose. But Jiaoxi doubts Hanlai would agree to fight alone unless he had a plan. Wang stays neutral, reminding them it was Hanlai's idea, but warns them not to cause too much trouble. Suddenly, someone asks if everyone has arrived. It's Hanlai carrying Panji's shopping bags and cheerfully suggesting they all grab dinner afterward. The group is stunned that he dared to bring his girlfriend to the fight. Kong becomes furious, shouting that Hanlai was insane to show up with a woman. He shoves the others aside, warning Hanlai he'll leave the gym with missing teeth. Hanlai calmly sets the bags on the ground and apologizes. Unfortunately, his sugar mommy was present, so he couldn't let her see him lose. He walks toward the group as Panji shouts for him to come back, but he just turns, reminding her to keep recording and get the best moments. Hanlai reflects that Kong Yais is one of the few people he barely remembers from his past life. Judging by the current situation, he's sure Kong is an inexperienced kid who's never been properly beaten. Kong tosses a pair of protective gloves at Hanlai, telling him to use them or risk dying. Hanlai laughs, telling Jiaoxi not to worry about him. Xiao Yu, trying to sound tough, says they won't gang up on him, but if Hanlai wins, he'll get 1 million as compensation. If he loses, however, he must never approach Panji again. Pangi, sitting nearby, demands to know why she's part of their ridiculous bet. Hanlai replies that even if he tried to stay away, she'd still come to him. But if they want to bet money, he's fine with it. Xiao Yu offers 500,000, and Kong raises the stakes by adding another 1,000,000. Hanlai is surprised, thinking he didn't expect this fight to be so profitable. He accepts but asks them to wait a moment. He pulls out some contracts, telling them to read carefully because they include payment deadlines. The three are baffled as to when he prepared these. Kong decides to sign immediately, figuring it's easier to be up Hanlai than worry about paperwork. Hanlai hands the bags to Pangi, saying he'll finish shopping with her later. Turning to the trio, he asks why they don't all attack at once. Everyone starts putting on their gear. Kong warns Hanlai to get ready since he asked for this. He lunges with a punch, claiming Hanlai will learn a valuable lesson today. But Hanlai easily dodges the first blow, glances to the side, grabs Kong's arm, and something cracks. Kong collapses, clutching his wrist in agony, while Hanlai calmly explains he just dislocated it. It's nothing serious. Xiao Yu calls Hanlai a bastard, only to take a direct punch to the nose, sending blood flying everywhere. With 70 system strength, it's no challenge. Jiaoxi, trembling in the corner, regrets ever trusting Kong's plans. Meanwhile, Panji is recording everything, amazed at how brutal this dog is in fights. But then something catches her attention. Pangi notices Kong reaching for a knife and quickly takes note of the situation. Kong suddenly stands up, shouting, asking if Hanlai really thinks they won't finish him off. Pangi screams at Hanlai to be careful, but the cut has already been made and blood is dripping. Pangi starts crying in panic, watching the drops hit the ground. It seems Hanlai caught the blade with his hand. Kong looks shocked, while Hanlai coldly tells him he's truly a dishonorable bastard. Wang steps in, demanding to know what Kong thinks he's doing. Kong, unable to justify himself, drops the knife. Wan pulls him aside, asking if he's lost his mind and if he was really trying to kill Hanlai. Kong stammers, saying that wasn't his intention. Meanwhile, Panji rushes to Hanlai, asking how his hand is. The cut is deep and she insists they need to go to the hospital or call the police immediately. Xiao Yu panics at the mention of the police, realizing Kong could end up in jail if this gets out. Panji tells Xiao Yu to step aside because Hanlai is bleeding heavily. She shows the video and points out that Kong clearly attacked from behind with intent to harm. If Hanlai hadn't turned around, he could have been killed, she says. Hanlai tries to downplay the situation, but Kong claims his broken wrist and Hanlai's injury make them even. Hanlai coldly reminds him that the contract never mentioned weapons. He sarcastically asks if everyone else brought knives too. Xiao Yu nervously denies being involved. Hanlai says he's heading to the hospital with comments that he took down one of them in 2 seconds, and the others didn't even try to fight. He tells them to message him if they want a rematch, but the group quickly declines, admitting defeat. At the hospital, the doctor examines Hanlai's hand and informs him the cut is deep and will require stitches. Pangi asks if this will interfere with his daily life. The doctor replies that during recovery, he won't be able to lift anything heavy. Hanlai, looking at his bandaged hand, realizes he might need to use the system to spend points and speed up the healing process. But Panji insists they proceed with the stitches, pulling him by the arm and saying the sooner he heals, the better. While this is happening, Ting Ting and Yun Yun are in the classroom, overhearing rumors that Han Lai was involved in a fight and ended up in the hospital. People are saying Kong stabbed him. Ting Ting, looking worried, stands up and asks if it's true. She wants to know where the information came from and where Han Lai is now. Yun Yun mentions that Kong has always liked Ting Ting and suggests this might have happened because of her connection to Han Lai. Ting Ting dismisses the idea, saying not everything's about romance. But she's still concerned and mutters, "The important thing is to know if that dog is okay." She tries to message him, asking if he's in the hospital and if the injury is serious. However, she remembers they block each other and has no way of contacting him. Fetty Fee pipes up, saying that everyone saw Panji go with Han Lai to the hospital, along with Mr. Yang and some other rich kids. Ting Ting wonders why so much chaos has happened in the short time she distanced herself from him. Yun Yun clasps her hands together and pleads for them to go to the hospital to check on him. Ting Ting reluctantly agrees, saying she'll ask first. Since she can't contact Han Lai directly, she decides to call Panji. When Panji picks up, Ting Ting immediately asks which hospital they're at and says she's coming to visit. Surprised, Panji asks how Ting Ting even knows they're at the hospital. Ting Ting explains that everyone at school knows because it was posted on the forums. But the most important thing is finding out if Han Lai is okay. Panji reassures her that he's fine while silently wondering how the school's rumors about Han Lai being beaten and stabbed got so out of hand. Ting Ting insists on getting the hospital's address, saying she wants to visit. Panji, realizing the rumors are spreading wildly, checks the forums and sees absurd claims that the winner of the trading competition was hospitalized after being stabbed in a fight over a woman. Her phone rings, it's her father. He demands to know what happened to Han Lai. The last he heard, they were out shopping, so how did this turn into a fight? Panji tries to downplay the situation, but her father cuts her off, telling her to send the hospital's address immediately because he's coming to visit. A while later, the doctor finishes stitching Han Lai's hand but warns it will take 2 months to heal and will leave a scar. Looking at his fully bandaged hand, Han Lai realizes this injury will disrupt his life more than he anticipated and decides he'll likely need to spend a significant amount of system points for recovery. He thanks the doctor and steps outside. The moment he does, he hears someone running toward him. It's Yun Yun calling out, "Brother Lai." She hugs him tightly, asking if he's really that hurt. Ting Ting stands nearby and Panji watches silently. Han Lai awkwardly points to his injured arm, saying, "That's exactly where you hugged me." He turns to Ting Ting, asking why she's there. Embarrassed, she stumbles through an explanation. But she quickly remembers she hasn't spoken to him in a while and feels out of place. She mutters that since he's in her class and she's the class monitor, she thought it was her responsibility to check on him. One of the nurses interrupts the group, asking them to lower their voices because they are disturbing other patients. Han Lai laughs and tells the nurse not to stress too much. He looks at Ting Ting and comments that it's true they haven't spoken in a while, thanking her for her concern. She tries to say she wasn't that worried, but Pangi suddenly chimes in. She says they're all being too dramatic and reminds them she's standing right there. Pangi pulls Han Lai by the arm and tells him not to worry because she's taking care of her boyfriend. Yun Yun feels a bit awkward and says that Brother Lai is loved by everyone in their class. Panji replies that she understands, but the problem is that this situation will cause chaos at school. Yun Yun agrees and they continue chatting. Meanwhile, Haksai Looting is wondering why the atmosphere feels so tense. Pandy calls out to Ting Ting, approaching her and saying they haven't been talking much lately. She then comments that Ting Ting's admirer is truly insane. The last time some people tried to beat up Han Lai in the middle of the night. And now this other admirer of hers challenged Han Lai to a fight and suddenly pulled out a knife. It was a close call as the guy aimed straight for Han Lai's back. Poor Haksai Looting, completely manipulated, starts wondering if Kong had really tried to attack Han Lai before. She had no idea this had already happened and was even more surprised that things had escalated so much. What's stranger is that Yun Yun seemed very concerned, so maybe she already knew about all of this. It seemed like Haksai Looting was the only one left in the dark. At that moment, Panji's father shows up. He rushes in, asking what happened and if his daughter is okay or scared. He also asks about Han Lai, wanting to know if his injuries will interfere with his daily life. Han Lai reassures him that everything is fine and that the doctor said he'll be 100% in a month. The father then turns to Haksai Looting and Yun Yun, asking if they're okay and whether they were involved in all this mess. Embarrassed, they reply that they weren't involved and only came because they were worried about him. Pangy's father nods and pulls Yun Yun along, saying that if Han Lai is fine, they should leave. Yun Yun hesitates, asking if they're really leaving just like that. Overflowing with energy, she insists they came all this way and should stay longer, so Han Lai doesn't think they don't care. But suddenly, Haksai Looting pushes her against the wall. She tells Yun Yun that the man who just arrived is Panji's father. Although she doesn't know his exact identity, it's clear he's an important person. She warns Yun Yun that while she may want to cling to Han Lai, this isn't the right time to do so. She explains that Han Lai and Panji's relationship has become official. Yun Yun asks if that means she's supposed to step aside and just settle for Han Lai's leftovers. Haksai Looting realizes her friend is hopeless. She tells Yun Yun to at least avoid being too close to Han Lai when Panji's father is around. Yun Yun, not deterred, says she can't help it, it's a habit. Sai sighs and tells her to leave for now, and when Han Lai is back in class, she can show him all the attention she wants. Despite this, Sai is angry at both Pangi and her friend. Then Yun Yun notices her phone ringing. It's someone named Yuxu Kin calling. She wonders if he's calling to ask for a like on a video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.